Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. And as promised, I have Rita Strugala back from Southern Paranormal. Okay. If you remember, she is an exorcist. Okay. And the last time our interview got sidelined, I was the victim of paranormal sabotage. Okay. Because our audio went. It went. So this time we've checked it, rechecked it. I've done other things. So I think we're good this time. All right. But anyway, here she is. Rita, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. No, my pleasure. On the contrary, thank you for coming back. Um, Rita, and it was so funny because I explained that when I did that little part about the that I was that I was a victim of paranormal sabotage. I said because I showed that little clip at the beginning where we're talking to each other and all of a sudden there's no audio, and I said she was smiling, and then when I asked her, she said, "Yes, that happens."
It does. Unfortunately, it does. More to us than I'd like to admit.
Okay. And this is the thing, I yeah, you see some of these paranormal shows, and a lot of them will talk, well, my battery's drained out and all this other
That
stuff.
happens.
But from what you're saying, sometimes, especially electronics, they kind of get
Oh, yeah.
jammed
Oh,
up,
yeah.
and a lot of people
There's
dismiss it. But you know better by now, is what you're saying.
there's a lot of times where it will come through our computers.
Mm-hmm.
They will shut off our cameras, of course, drain the batteries. They come through our phones even. And there are times where I literally have to stop talking who I'm talking with, put my hands over the phone and literally push white light through the phone and push them
Wow.
off the line. It's crazy. But yeah, they do and they can. My senior sensitive on the team, her daughter lives in Birmingham and she has a business there. And ever since she opened that business, their computers, they half the time they don't work.
Really?
And there was a mining accident not far from where their business is now located,
Okay.
and just a lot of paranormal activity there and that. And we've gone down there, and it's funny ever since I had them put tape with blessed salt on it
Mm-hmm.
around the cords of their computers, not had a bit of problem since.
And see, that's the thing, if you want to say, okay, well, come on, but I mean, you really can't say okay coincidental, because I think that's not coincidence.
No, no,
Especially because if you have some problem with your transmission or the electricity, forget it. You could tape whatever you want on there. You're still gonna have a
right,
problem.
exactly.
But okay, I'm gonna go back, and what I want you to tell my audience, because I know you've done this for a long time, but if you go back and tell them what was your childhood experience, and then how you found yourself going into this field, and eventually where you're at right now.
Okay, well, it started when I was really young. I was either 4 or 5 years old, and we were very, very poor growing up. We didn't have a lot of money or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I lived up in Minnesota. And contrary to popular belief, it's not always cold in Minnesota.
Okay.
It was in it was in the summertime, and it gets up to 97 degrees up there in the summertime too. We didn't
Okay.
have air conditioning. And so my parents, we had a box fan. And when they would go to bed at night, they would put the box fan in the doorway to the bedroom there so that we could go to sleep because it was
Okay.
so hot.
Okay.
And then when my parents would go to bed, they'd take the fan and go to their room. Well, it was sometime late in the night. I'm not even sure I could tell time yet then. I don't really know. But I know it was in the middle of the night. I was sweltering. The fan was gone, so my parents had gone to bed. And I was laying there just hoping for a breeze to come through the window.
Okay.
And I heard footsteps coming down the hall. That wasn't unusual for one of them to get up in the middle of the night and come check and make sure that we were okay.
Okay.
And so I just kind of laid there and I watched, and the footsteps approached the doorway. And when it should have been right there in the doorway, it stopped and there was nobody standing there. And so it scared me. I mean, I'm only four, and
Yes.
I'm terrified. I don't want to, I'm afraid to move. I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, um, I laid there. What felt like, I know it felt like a year, but it was probably just a few minutes. And it finally got to a point where I thought, okay, well, whatever it is, it must be gone because I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. And I was just getting to a point where I was starting to relax again. And all of a sudden there was a booming voice that said, "You kids stay out of my piggy bank money." Now, I didn't even know what a piggy bank was
And you're
back
like,
then.
huh?
I had no clue, but it terrified me.
Okay.
It was loud. I expected my parents to come running, and nobody apparently heard it but me.
I was about to
It
ask you, none of your siblings in there heard anything.
did not wake up my siblings, did not wake up my parents, and it just absolutely terrified me. But, we moved a few weeks after that away from there. But that one experience, it terrified me, yet it fascinated the heck out of me. And I would go to like the library. Now this was, a couple years later. I never forgot that experience. A few years later, as I'm in school, I go to the library and I start looking for books on ghosts and things like that because I wanted to know what happened.
Right.
And I mean, my parents were very, they were like no nonsense type of people, like,
Yes.
it's your imagination, that kind of thing. But it wasn't in a cruel way. It was just like they really and truly didn't believe in it.
Yeah, it was like, or if you brought it up, especially if you were a kid, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
your imagination's running away with you.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. And we weren't allowed to watch shows, and back then, they didn't have shows on the paranormal like you see
Oh,
today.
no. Uh-uh.
You see Casper the Friendly Ghost on
That
a
was about it.
cartoon. Or if it was Halloween and your parents would let you watch a scary movie,
Yeah.
that was pretty much your only. And so I started checking out like books at the library, trying to find things on ghosts. And honestly, the only one I can ever remember from back then was like Hans Holzer.
Yes. Hans
He was
Holzer
the
was
one
about
that
the
had,
only one that was putting out books, about all his, his investigations. And, because I read those same books because I went through the
yeah,
same thing. He would have the mediums that he worked with, and
yes,
he identified. But even at the same time, though, it would always be historical landmarks with things that happened a long time before,
yep,
but they were never really dark per se. You understand what I'm saying?
right, yes, yeah,
Uh, but yeah, he was the only one. He did a bunch of books, but he was the only one out there writing books
yeah.
about it.
At that time there was. And then when I was like 12 years old, I actually formed my very first group.
Okay.
And it
Well,
was like me and two other kids from the neighborhood.
okay.
And, we had like little pen light flashlights, and we would go down to like abandoned buildings or whatever. Of course, we would never tell our parents that, but, you
Right.
do what you got to do.
What?
And, so.
That's really
and
how, things that they do. This is where they say that you follow your passion.
Yeah. And we'd get like the little disposable cameras and take pictures, that kind of thing, and try to catch stuff. And that was my first real thing. And I've actually had groups ever since I was 12 years old. I have had groups of paranormal. And for the longest time, I just wanted, like most groups, to document what was out there. I wanted answers for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And other people that would join us was the same way. They had their own questions they wanted answered.
Right.
And that was basically why, for the group. But I never, ever wanted anything to do with the darkness, though. I was very afraid of the demonic thing.
Right.
And I remembered reading when I was quite young, I remember reading that it was stated that for a person who was actually a paranormal investigator to see an actual demonic case was actually about 5% chance of actually running into a real demonic case.
Right.
And I'm thinking my chances are pretty good then that I won't. And I kept on doing my thing.
Uh-huh.
And as the years went by, cases started getting harder. And I was getting very dissatisfied with just documenting it. It was like these people are asking for help.
Yes.
We're going into their house, we're documenting it and saying, yeah, you're right, you do. Now you got to live with it. Bye-bye.
Right. And We discussed this
It,
earlier. A lot of the shows nowadays, even from back then, but even a lot of the shows, that's exactly what they would do. They would go in there and go, "Yeah, you're right. It's not your imagination. And by the way, this is who it is because we caught an EVP or whatever. Bye, see ya."
and we
Or,
don't think it's bad.
or we don't. Oh yeah, that's the one that I love. Well, you know what? It doesn't seem malicious, and I'm like, well,
It
what do you
didn't throw me
need?
into a wall while I was there, so therefore you're okay.
Right. That's the one thing that a lot of times I don't agree with, and I could see exactly what you mean. Where you have people, and it's like that. By the way, I always wonder in a lot of these shows that they tell them, you know what, we've been here, and it doesn't seem malicious and everything, and even after people have complained that things are happening with their kids. It's okay. And I go, they never, excuse me, they never revisit those cases because
No,
I'm sure those families wanted more than just to be told it's okay, don't worry about it. It's like,
yeah,
what do you think I called you in the first place for?
exactly, exactly. And now, and they say, well, we're only a phone call away. Well, no, you're not. You're 5 states and a phone call away.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
So there's a big difference. But so I got very dissatisfied with not being able to help. And I started learning about how to cleanse houses, what works, what doesn't work, the different cultures, how different cultures do things, because it's important that when you go into someone's house that you do things within a faith that they believe in.
Of course.
That's very important. So there was a lot of learning that I did. And I started cleansing lands and started cleansing houses and things like that. And so it got to a point where I really didn't want to go back to a group that didn't actually help people. So I'm stating this because when I knew as I was learning and as things were growing, I knew that things were changing. Even my
Right.
gifts were changing. Everything, and it was getting to a point where I was actually getting anxious. And
Okay.
it's like I felt like there's this little tiny snowball way at the top of the hill, and it started rolling down, and it's coming right for me, and it's
Okay.
getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to hit me, and I'm not ready for this. And
Okay.
I didn't even know at that time what that was. So this started when I lived in South Georgia, and it became apparent that my parents were getting elderly and they were needing more help. So I
Okay.
decided to move back home to North Alabama to help my parents out.
Okay.
I came back here and I was trying to decide whether or not I really wanted to start another group or not.
Right,
I've
because
done
you had,
this,
you were now in another different state altogether, right?
right. And it's like, and I've been through the groups with all the paradrama and all that stuff. And do I really want to do this again?
Mm-hmm.
Type thing. And I thought, I think maybe this time I'm just going to join somebody else's group and let them deal with it. And I'll
Right.
just go investigate and have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, then I started checking out the different groups and found out that none of them were really helping anybody. It was back to the same old,
Yeah.
we're just going to document and go on. And I knew I couldn't do that anymore. That just wasn't for me.
And you know what, Rita? Most 9 times out of 10, what in reality is that they are scared because they
Yeah.
don't know. Well,
How to help?
or they're scared. They're scared. What if I don't know
What if it
number
falls
one,
down?
they don't know probably what they're doing. Number
Yeah.
two, they're scared.
What if it
Once
follows me
especially they
home?
documented that there is something there. Like, how am I? What if it does something to me? So they're like, okay, we're out of here. Bye. See ya.
Right. Absolutely. So I decided to go ahead and start one more group. And
Okay.
I've had it ever since. I've
Okay.
had it now for 17 years.
Wow.
And
That's a long
um,
time for a paranormal group.
it is. It is. And we branched off from there. But it was like I wanted nothing to do with the darkness.
Okay.
And whenever we would get a case that I was pretty sure was demonic in nature, I would, try to go through all the different channels that I knew to try to find somebody that might be able to help those people. I knew
Okay.
it wasn't going to be me. And I was
Right.
honest with them about that. That I did not want to do that. I didn't want anything to do with it. Well, apparently this was my path, and I was just like, no, digging in my heels, no.
Yeah.
So
You can
I
resist
came
all you
back
want, but
and I started I just had the most amazing year. And at the end of each of the cases, it was like, this is the Lord telling you, I've got your back. Now you sit there and you say you believe, you say you have faith.
Okay.
If you really do, then you've got to trust me. You've got to trust that I've got your back. And I was like, I'm just not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. So when I came back, I started writing a book.
Okay.
I had so many cases that I've done over the years, and I just started putting them along with the pictures and the evidence that we had caught and that kind of stuff. And I had a big old, nice old book, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm supposed to get this published. That way I'll have money to be able to, gas money to go help people,
Right.
that kind of thing. And then one day it struck me. It's like, no, you're not supposed to get this published. And I'm like, why did I waste all that time writing this book?
Uh-huh.
And it hit me. It's like, no, it's to remind you how far you've come.
Okay.
It's to give you confidence. And it's like, oh, I don't like where this is going.
Well,
As soon as Colleen joined my group, she's our senior sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
We started seeing cases that nobody else sees.
Okay.
And it was crazy. It's like, why are we seeing this? What? And it started out with a police officer in Birmingham, Alabama. And he was hearing children running in his house, and it scared the living daylights out of him.
I can imagine.
He was a Marine, a retired Marine. I think he had 22 years in the service.
Okay.
And now he's a police officer. And we went to his house to help him. And it was really odd because when we went in there, usually Colleen will be pulled in one direction or another, and that's where we'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll let me know what she's seeing and feeling and hearing. And we sat there and she said, I don't feel anything. And he says, well, I've got, tape recordings of it I can let you hear. And she said, no, I'm not saying you didn't get anything. I'm just saying right now I don't feel anything. And she said, let me walk back here. She said, is the master bedroom back here? And he said, yes. She said, I'm going to go back there. And I said, okay. So we went back there. I set up a few flashlights, that kind of thing to do some, see if we could get it to respond to anything.
Right.
And we had one in there that definitely wanted to talk.
Okay.
And was very talkative. And it's like, I don't understand the scenario of what is going on here. About that time, all these people came in. I could feel it. I don't see them, but I feel them.
Okay.
And I felt the room get extremely crowded. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And Colleen is just sitting there, and her eyes are like huge. She said, you have no idea. She said, there's thousands of people walking through here right now. I said, yeah, I can feel it. And she says, but they're not a single one of them is over the age of 30. She said,
Okay.
I don't understand this. And they walked into the bedroom. They went to the other side of the bed, and they went up in the air and were gone.
So it went from like, 0 to...
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And what we were able to figure out after speaking with this individual, and Colleen can hear them. I can ask questions, and she can hear them answered.
Okay.
And I would also have them do a flashlight, this one for yes, this one for no, just so that I knew that we were all getting the same answers.
Okay.
And what it turned out to be is basically like a bus station. And it was like, sometimes you would have people there, sometimes you wouldn't. And it was actually the actual stairway to heaven. And this one that was there that was using the flashlight was what we called the gatekeeper. And he would have all these people come in. He would show them to the I don't know, I guess the stairway, the elevator, whatever it is.
And let me ask you, but this was something that was like a temporary scenario, or how long had this guy been having this experience with this?
He had been having experiences there, I think he said, for about a month, and it scared the heck out of him.
No.
He just was very no nonsense, very, no, I will fight an entire army, but this scares me.
Yeah,
that doesn't scare me,
I
but
can't
this
fight
scares
against
me.
this.
So, And we had another sensitive that was there, and she saw the same thing. And there was this portal that was actually up in the air off of the bedroom, and it was literally opening up a stairway to heaven for these
Do
souls
you
to
think this
go
had
home.
anything, as far as just a coincidence, did it have anything to do with him, or was it the location?
I think it was just that location. I mean, I think it was just there for a certain amount of time, and then it would move on someplace else.
Okay.
But it just happened to be there. Um, I was speaking with the gatekeeper, and I got a name,
Okay.
and that he had died in the war, and that he knew William, who was the guy we were helping.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that's the
And
connection. Okay.
and so I asked William to come in, and I told him, I said, we're speaking with him. I said, did you have a battle buddy by the name of John so and so? And his eyes just got huge. Yes. And I said, and he died in battle, correct? Yes. I said, well, he's here.
He
And
must,
he freaked out.
he must
He
have been
was
thinking,
like,
how did he get in on this?
I mean, he was so afraid he wouldn't even face the flashlight because he didn't want to see it
Oh,
go
I'm
off and on.
sure.
And I said, you got to understand. I said, all he wants you to do is to acknowledge him. That's all. He's just saying, hey, brother, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's me. It's okay. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, when you walk in the room, all you have to do is go, hey, whatever the guy's name is. And, just acknowledge him.
Yeah.
That's all. You don't have to sit down and have a flashlight conversation with him. Just say, hey, how's it going? And go about your
He was
business.
probably thinking, because I'm not going to do that.
Oh, he told me, he said, I'm moving.
Oh, I'm
He
sure.
said, I
I was
am
about
moving.
to tell you.
And I said, okay, let me put it to you this way. Why would you take a chance on moving away from, you've got the best of the best here. You've got angels right here helping people up to heaven. I said, why would you chance that you would leave something like that to go to a possible place that has demonic spirits in it?
He probably
I
didn't.
mean, you've got the best of the best. I can't handle this. I can't handle this.
I
I'm
was going to
moving.
say, he probably could not wrap his head around that.
And so, it was a few months later down the road after we left, I called him just to check on him, see how he was doing. And he was still living there. And
Okay.
after about a week after we left, he's never heard another thing.
Good.
So I know that portal moved on. But yeah, so that was our first case that let us know something is really changing, because we'd never had cases like that before.
Right. That wasn't your typical haunting or
No,
something going on there.
no.
And so all of a sudden, like you said, you're seeing the scope of your cases take on what you have been trying to avoid for all these years, which was a darker aspect to when you got there,
Yeah,
that you were like, okay, this is not Uncle John
right.
who wants you
Exactly.
to
This is
find
the
his
grand
will,
silly.
or something like that. Or
Right.
whatever, the typical stuff that sometimes you get if it really is, any type of
Yeah.
intelligent haunting. So, but still, between being a
Following that
paranormal
experience,
investigator and an exorcist, how did you end up there?
I told Colleen, I said, you do realize, I said, if we're seeing the best of the best, at some point we're going to see the worst of the
Oh,
worst.
yeah.
The whole yin and yang thing. You
Yes,
can't have one without the other. That's just the way it
exactly.
is.
Exactly.
And so for about the next 3 months, we saw nothing but the best of the best. We saw angels. We saw, the stairway to heaven. We saw, just the most amazing things. And then things started going a little darker. And it's like, and that's when I was starting to feel really, really anxious. Like, I know this is coming and I am just not ready for this. And what happened was we had a case that was scheduled in Alabaster, Alabama. It was a
Okay.
single family dwelling, no big
Okay.
deal. And it was for that weekend. It was the Wednesday prior to that. And it was one of those days where you don't have time to even change your mind, much less, go do anything. You're so busy doing everything you've got to do and get done. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, I started thinking, I need to get some dragon's blood, which is an herb that I use during cleansing.
Okay.
To get Dragon's blood, I have to drive a 45-minute one-way trip into Huntsville to get it.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't have time to do that. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure I still have dragon's blood. I went in, I got my cleanse kit out, and I looked, sure enough, I had a whole stick of it. It's like, I could do, 4 or 5 single-family dwellings with that.
Okay.
No, we're fine. Good. It kept on bugging me and bugging me and bugging me until I finally got in the car, drove to Huntsville, got the dragon's blood, wasn't happy about it at all.
Right.
Drove back, and about an hour after I got back home, I got a phone call from the lady in Alabaster saying, 3 of our kids have strep throat. Can we push this case back a week? And I said, sure, not a problem. That's not a problem. I hang up the phone with her, and I'm going, you see, I didn't need the dragon's blood after all.
You were like, okay.
I know, I should have known better.
Uh-huh.
And about an hour later, I get a call from Colleen saying that she had seen a huge black orb down at the stables that morning. Now, she has horses that she keeps down at the stables, friends down there, and it had an ominous background to it.
When you say Colleen, this is Colleen?
My senior sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah. And she said, we really need to do a cleansing, and it needs to be really soon. And I went, okay, that's why I had to have the dragon's blood.
Okay.
Because the stables is a pretty big area. And I asked her, I said, how big is it? She said, well, it's going to be Joyce's house, it's going to be her daughter's house, plus the lands, which is 30 acres. And I'm like, oh, crap, I should have got more dragon's blood.
That's a lot of cleansing.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, so now I know why I had to go get the dragon's blood. So I did. And we get down there, we're driving down there the day of, which was that Saturday. We did it in place of the case they canceled.
Okay.
I'm driving down there, and I've got my friend, or teammate, whatever, Ethan, with me. We're driving down there. It's a 2-hour drive, and we're going through, it's in August. It is thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm.
Okay.
I must have driven through, 6 or 7 of them on the way there. And I'm talking to him about this. I'm saying, man, there's something changing with my gifts, and I'm not ready for this. And it's really got me anxious. I don't know what to do. I don't want to do this. And he kept saying, look, you've been doing this for 38 years. You're ready. You've got this. You just need some confidence. You've got this.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I don't. We get there. We had just driven through a thunderstorm. We get there, and I get out of the car, and I hear the thunderstorm behind us. It's catching up to us.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, how am I going to get 11 people saged and into the house prior to all this breaking loose? I look over the land to see what it is we're going to be cleansing and everything, and there's this huge rainbow over the property.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I said, we got this. And I knew we did.
That's a good sign.
I was like, we got this. I didn't know how I knew we got this, but I knew we got this. Got everybody saged, went inside, and I talked with the lady that owned the place. And apparently 30 years prior, she had a stables that was brand new built on there and 10 horses in the stables. And there was some kind of a fire that happened, and all the horses died. It burned down.
That's
all
horrible.
The horses died.
That is horrible.
To this day, they do not know what happened because there was no electricity hooked up in there yet. None of the hay burnt.
Okay. What?
They could not figure out what happened.
That's weird.
So that night, the lady who owned the place was so distraught that she lost all these horses.
I bet.
She went into the kitchen to get something to drink, and she said there was this thing that looked like a reptile. She said, but it's standing, and it's red. And she said, and it looked at me and said, if you will agree to follow me, I will bring all your horses back. And she said, Rita, I actually thought about it for a minute because I loved my horse so much. And she said, and then I realized what exactly that meant. And she said, no, you killed my horse. And she said, it hissed, went up the wall and out the window and was gone. She said, right after that, she called a priest to come out, bless the land. He put 4 angels on each corner of the land. And ever since then, everything had been fine up until recently. So now I had some history of what
But
was
let me
going
tell you
on.
something. That's pretty out there because if you see, that's God, that's
Yeah.
bad.
And I'm going, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh dear God, no, because at this point I'm still going, I'm not doing demonic cases, but this is my best friend who is asking for my help. Of course I'm going to help her.
So, but really, what you're describing is this priest did his best, but he really didn't get rid of it. All he did was just put something there to
Well,
keep it
he did
back.
get rid of it for 30 years, but the lady's daughter who lived on the property ended up bringing something back in.
Oh,
And
okay,
so one by one, the angels started disappearing. And she
okay,
said for the longest time, she said, when I first met her, like a year prior to this happening, Colleen, she said that she always saw two angels when she went into the stables. She said of late, there'd only been one. And she said within the past month, she hadn't seen any.
okay,
So then that morning she saw the black orb inside the stables and she knew something was very, very wrong.
okay.
So we get inside Joyce's house. She's like 70 something years old. God bless her. And I told her, you need to come with me, take back your house. I said, you can say whatever I'm saying, or you can make up your own words, but you just need to tell it to go because this is your house. You have to
Right.
take it back. By this time, I'd done hundreds of cleansings. And so I always say the same thing pretty much, just
Okay.
because it works. It always works. So I stay with the same thing. So we start walking around. I've got the sage. We're saging the house, and I'm going around, and I start my spiel. And all of a sudden, I'm saying things that I never say. It's coming out of my mouth, and it's in my voice, but I'm literally sitting here in my head thinking, this is good. Why don't I say this? This is really good. So
Yeah,
I
you're.
didn't know where it was coming from, but I knew it wasn't coming from me, but it was good.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, better remember this
And
the next time.
yeah, so we get done with the cleansing, and Colleen comes up and she said, Regina and I think it was Joan, she said, saw it go out the window. She said, you're never going to guess what it looked like. And I said, do I want to know? She said, you know those pictures that you see of Jack the Ripper in the black cloak and he has a hat on, but you never see his face because they don't know who he is?
Yes.
And I said, yeah, it's always in shadow. And I said, yeah. She said, it looked just like that. She said, and it turned around and looked at me and it had razor blades for teeth. And
Oh.
she said, it went up the wall and out the window.
And you know what? I want to interrupt you because there's a lot of people, that Hat Man thing going on.
Yes.
And that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Almost. But anyway, keep going. We'll talk about that later.
Well, the other thing I guess I should mention is the whole time we are cleansing this woman's house, it is, lightning, thunder, rain. It's like, oh my gosh, Hollywood is out there creating this. It was like the atmosphere was just insane.
Okay.
And the minute that we got done and that thing went out the window, it all stopped.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, that's a coincidence, It's like, this is weird.
Yeah.
So we got everybody together, got all our equipment together. We have to go across the pasture to go cleanse her daughter's house. Her daughter lives in a 4,700 square foot house. So this is going to take a while. And so we start across the pasture, all our equipment and stuff. And here comes another storm.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh no. So we're like booking it to get across this pasture to get in the house before the storm breaks. I walk into her house and it was like walking into a wall. It was so heavy in there, so stagnant, the air. It was awful. And she came downstairs.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I said, okay, so tell me, why are we here? What's going on? And she had been crying. And she said, my life is in a complete shambles. She said, the beginning of this year, she said, my husband filed for divorce.
Okay.
She said, I fell off the wagon after 14 years of sobriety.
Oh.
Started drinking again. She said, my husband is suing me for custody of our child.
Oh.
She said, I just got a brand new job and they caught me drinking on the job and I got fired within a week. So I don't have a job. So now my house is going to go into foreclosure. And she said, if that isn't bad enough, she said, last night I got arrested for public intoxication.
Oh my God.
And I spent the night in jail. She said, there's nowhere for me to go. She said, I'm at rock bottom.
I was about to say, she's what you call at rock bottom.
Absolutely. And so I told her, I said, okay, well, we got to take back your house. That's the first thing we got to do is get all this negative air out of here and take back your house. And sure enough, the minute I start lighting up the sage bowl and getting everything ready to go, the storm breaks. Okay. And it's the lightning, it's the thunder, it's the rain, it's the wind, Hollywood at its best again.
So Rita, do you think that what was happening to her was the same thing that had been in the other house?
Yes, I think it was going from both houses.
Okay.
Because the daughter would go from her house to her mother's house.
Okay.
And she also had a lot to do down at the stables.
Okay.
So she brought in the demons.
Okay.
They were with her. And so we started going through the house and we started doing the cleansing. Again, I start saying all these things I don't ever say.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, this is just crazy. Where is this coming from? This is so good. And I'm just like amazed. It's like, and it's never happened again.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're going through all this stuff. And one of the things that we do after we do the saging, we do the baptism of the rooms with the holy water, and then we take the salt, put it on the sashes and the thresholds of any entryways in, and we got to the front door, and I will put some salt in their hand, open up the front door, and tell them to say, in Jesus' name, I cast you out. Okay. That's symbolic to the entity.
Right.
And I put the salt in her hand, and the next thing I know, the storm is just deafening because the door is wide open. And the next thing I know, she's falling to her knees, screaming, oh my God, it hurts so bad. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out of me. Oh my God, help me, help me. And I'm like frozen. I'm like, this is my worst nightmare come true.
That's it. And I can't leave because it's raining and storming outside.
It's like, I want to go home.
Yeah, I bet.
And I am literally just like, all I could say was give it over to Jesus and cast it out. You have to cast it out. Meanwhile, Colleen hears the screaming from the other room. She comes running in, gets behind the girl, puts her hands on the girl's back, never says a word, never looks at me. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And I'm just telling her, you have to cast it out. And the storm is just relentless. I'm screaming it. And she's screaming, it hurts so bad, get it out, get it out. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. This is my nightmare come true. And I'm standing beside her. She's literally facing this way, and I'm standing this way, looking at her. I'm looking at Colleen behind her, and all of a sudden, something caught my eye behind Colleen. Okay. And I'm like, the only way I know to describe it is it looked like it looks when you see the hot pavement on a hot summer day, that wavy mirage-like
that shimmer
look.
Thing, yeah.
Yes, was behind Colleen. And I thought, what the heck is that? And I happened to look at the front of the girl, and there was the same thing there, only it was tinged in red. Oh. And it struck me, oh my God, they are literally warring for her soul right in front of me.
Okay.
And that scared the potatoes out of me.
Well, because, like you said, you thought you were going to go doing a cleansing.
Yeah. I did not expect this. This is the first time we'd had both good and evil at the same place.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling her, in Jesus' name, cast it out, cast it out. And she finally, at the crescendo of the storm, said, in Jesus' name, I cast you out. She threw the salt out the door and collapsed on the floor crying, and it was gone. That red thing was gone.
Okay.
The thing behind Colleen was gone. The storm stopped immediately. And I'm like, what the heck just happened?
You must have been like...
I was like, what? Am I being punked?
Well, and it's like like you said, you were there at that moment. What else were you going to do except you had to confront it and do it,
What could you do?
handle it? I mean,
And they knew that. They
yeah,
knew that's the only way I would ever put myself in that predicament was be for a friend, because there's no way I was going anywhere near the darkness.
right. Like if you would have known ahead of time, it would never have happened because you would have found some way of getting out of it. So it was
Yep,
like, okay, once she's there, we're going
exactly.
to put her in this situation.
So Colleen, like, looks up at me, and she was just as mind boggled as I was. And she just looked at me and quite frankly said, "What the hell just happened?" And I said, "I don't know, but I saw something behind you that was shimmering, and I'm pretty sure it was an angel." I said, "And I saw something in front of her that was tinged in red, and I'm pretty sure that it was the devil and that they were warring for her soul." And she said, and instead of saying you're crazy or really that's what happened, she looked at me and said, "You saw the angel too?"
And you're like,
And I went,
okay.
"Oh my gosh. Okay."
Oh, this keeps
So,
getting better and better.
oh my gosh. So you haven't heard anything yet. So we're all exhausted. We're exhausted. You know, this is just too much. And we've cleansed the land and all this stuff. And now I told him, I said, we have to go back up to where the barn originally burnt down and make a medicine circle, because we need to detox all this negative energy into the ground and
Okay.
ground ourselves, because
Okay.
we were all just spent. We
Okay.
grab our equipment and stuff. And we start going across the pasture again to go up to the where the barn burned down. Here comes another storm. I'm like, "Are you kidding me, Lord? Are you kidding me?" And
Like,
I mean, and the rain line was like right there. You're just, I knew we were all gonna get soaked, and I didn't care about that. But I was like, "God, please don't let us get struck by lightning. Please don't strike us."
yeah, exactly. Like that.
Oh my
It'd be
gosh! I was like, this is never gonna end.
my short my my short job as an exorcist.
Exactly.
You know.
So we made it up there, and I started doing a medicine circle. And of course, the wind was crazy, the thunder, the lightning, the rain was like right there. You could smell it. And I was lighting candles, and the wind was blowing them out as fast as I could light them. And I got everybody inside the circle, and I
Okay.
closed it with blessed salt.
Now let me
And
ask you
I
then.
did,
Do you think whatever that was originally, because like you said, she had already had troubles
right.
before.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that something from a prior owner from the land? Did you ever get any idea of what the point of origin was for this?
I'm not certain on that. I do know that the girl that brought it in is an open channel,
Okay.
and she lived there 30 years prior too.
Oh,
So,
really? Okay.
yes. So I don't know if it came in through her or what, but there had always been a lot of Native Americans on that land. Well, as the demons started taking over, you
Okay.
don't see the Native Americans anymore. They're the keepers of the earth. So they actually go down into the earth.
Okay.
And when there's a demonic situation like that. And so inside that medicine circle, I did a tobacco offering to the natives and asked them to come back on the land to hunt it and protect
Okay.
that family. And we were sitting down, and I'm telling everybody how to detox, how to push all the negative energy into the ground, how to fill themselves with the white light to rejuvenate themselves and to, get some more energy back.
Okay.
And Joyce, the 70-year-old lady, she's sitting right beside me, and Clean's sitting right beside her. And she says, "Can you tell me what red means?" And I said, "Could you be more specific?" And she said, "Yeah, like a red orb, or it's reddish, kind of reddish purple." And Colleen says, "Well, that can be a higher evolved spirit." She said, it can also be something with anger. She said, "I think what you're saying," she said, "there's a medicine man in the circle here with us now." She said, "Who's going to each of us, healing each of us in turn." She said, "He's
Okay.
got red leggings on." She said, "I think that's what you're picking up."
Wow.
I actually picked up my camera and took 3 pictures. And in those 3 pictures is this huge red orb, and it's everywhere that she said the medicine man was is where the orb
It
was.
corresponded with what she was saying.
It,
That's incredible.
so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden it strikes me that why aren't we getting wet? I mean, the storm is like crazy loud,
Uh-huh.
and the trees are swaying, and why aren't we getting wet? And I'm kind of looking around, and I look up, and about that time, everybody looked up, and there's like 11 of us. We all look up, and everywhere over that property, it's storming, except right above the medicine circle, there's nothing but stars shining down.
Can you imagine? I mean, come. That's.
That's when I said, I get it, Lord. You got my back. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
Right. This is like, yeah. What is it? You almost did like that trial by fire kind of thing, just to prove it to yourself
Yes.
that you could handle it. And so, what happened after that? Did you decide, well, I'm going to start learning how to formally do the exorcism rites, or?
When I said I would do it, what I meant was,
According to Rita, but that's
what I actually meant was, I will help another team do exorcisms, but I'm
oh,
not going to do them. I will be there. I will video camera in. I will do whatever you need me to do. I will hold people, restrain them, but I'm not going to do the exorcism.
okay.
That's for a priest to do. That was my thinking at that time.
Uh-huh.
And that was before I also became clergy.
Right,
So,
yeah, it was like, yeah, I'll just like I know
yeah, it's like,
exactly what you
and,
mean, because if something
and
goes
I'm like,
down, it won't be me who has to figure out how to solve it.
exactly. And the demons are going to be mad at the clergy person, not at me.
Right, right, right.
And it was such a stupid thought. But anyway,
Yeah.
I, so my thought was, I don't have those kind of people on my team. So
Okay.
I needed to try to find, because the instances of people reporting more demonic stuff was
Okay.
getting more and more and more and more, and it's like 5% chance. That was
You
that
were
was
you were
50
taking all
years
the
ago.
5% for everybody else. Nobody had to worry about it. You were taking it all.
Exactly. It's like, no, I'd say it's more like 75% chance.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I really need to get a priest on my team. Well, of course, that's when I found out that most priests are not trained to do exorcism and don't
Right.
want anything to do with it.
Yes.
And it's a very, very small number of people, of priests that do it, or
Yes.
any clergy people that do it. There's very few actual religions that even believe in
Yeah,
demons.
that they even have any type of I guess I don't want to use ritual or wording, or they just
Right, right. And they think after Christ came, all the demons just disappear.
okay.
And I
Well,
don't know where that comes from, but anyway, but
mhm.
that I found that out, that a lot of them, that is their belief system. And it's like, okay, so what do you do for people that come to you saying that they have problems? What do
And
you
you know
do?
what? And you're absolutely right, because you hear a lot of people, and it's not even has to be demonic,
Yeah.
that they're undergoing some type of paranormal attack. Something's really going on in their home. And I'm not saying it
Yep.
has to be demonic. It could just be a dead person.
Right.
And they go, if they're not Catholic, and they'll go to their clergy, and they're like, no, no, no. They're like, no, let's not talk about that. And
Exactly.
even then, even when they do belong, let's say if they're Catholic and they belong to a parish, there's a lot of the priests that will, if they're lucky, if they get a house blessing, and that's as far as it's going to
Absolutely.
go.
Because honestly, the ones that I have referred to people to Catholic priests, and
Hmm.
I am Catholic. So I'm not hating on Catholics,
Right.
but even the people that I have sent to either Jewish synagogues or Catholic churches, unless you are a member of their parish, they won't even talk to you.
Oh yeah. Yes. I
And
agree. I agree. And
it's
even
it's
then,
like, you're not helping people. You are not helping people. You are supposed to be the people that they can go to, and you're not helping them. So that really upset me personally, because it's like, short of having a hotline to the Pope, uh, what do you do?
well, and I mentioned it to you in the other interview, the one that that, back in September of 2016, the senior exorcist for the out of the
Yes.
Vatican, which was Father Amarath, he died.
Yep. Yep.
And I was reading where, I know that the Catholic Church is having a hard time as it is recruiting priests to begin with, but there's
Yes.
a lot of them. They don't have any exorcists because these young priests are ones that are coming out of the seminary. They do
Yep.
not want to do that. They want to be a
Exactly.
priest, but what,
Yep.
I guess if they're tapped, like, we want to train you to be an exorcist, they're like, no, we don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. And it's dangerous. It is the most dangerous thing you can do.
Yeah.
There are more priests killed in exorcisms than any other thing.
Really?
I mean,
I did not
it
know
is
that.
absolutely, it's extremely dangerous. And so, I'm like, I can't get a priest to talk to me, much less get him on my team.
Okay.
And my thinking was, if this is really my path and this is what you want me to do, the Lord will provide.
Okay.
He will make an avenue somehow, some way. And so what happened shortly thereafter was that I had gotten an email from a man who lived in Huntsville, which is 45 minutes away from me. And he was saying that they were having a lot of bad activity at their house, and that their dog was getting thrown off the couch. Just real physical things were going on. He'd had 3 paranormal teams there, and absolutely no one had helped him.
Okay.
Was exactly what he said. And Sherry, who also moderates like my Facebook page, she was telling me that he had contacted her and she told him to get in touch with me. And that's how he got my address and that.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, tell him that I will call him tomorrow, because I think it was Labor Day that day, if I'm not mistaken, and I had plans. So the next day I called him, and we must have talked for about an hour on the phone. And I asked him all kinds of questions. And one of them I always ask is, have you been doing the Ouija board, or,
Right.
tarot cards, or, anything doing with the occult, seances, anything. And he said, well, I used to when I lived in another town. He said, but we haven't done that in years.
Okay.
I said, okay, all right, I got that. So I got all the information I needed from him. And then about an hour later, I get a thing from Sherry saying, did this guy tell you everything that he's been doing? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, he's been talking to me on private messenger. She said, ever since you guys hung up. Did he tell you about the Ouija board?
And you're like,
And I'm like, I asked him about an Ouija board.
uh-huh.
And she said, he says that they do it weekly. And I'm like, okay, now you've ticked me off, because now you're lying to me.
Yes.
Okay, you're putting me in a dangerous situation and you're lying to me. That really upsets me. So I called Colleen, and she's one of these people that I don't tell her anything about a case. I don't even tell her where it's at. I just say, we've got a case. Can you tell me what you're picking up? And she will start giving me her impressions of what she's seeing.
Okay.
And she said, is there a young man that lives there? And I said, define young, And she said 30-ish. And I said, yeah. And she said, okay. She said, does he live by himself? And I said, no. She said, Rita, whatever this is, she said, it is overshadowing everything. All I can see, she said, I see 3 things. She said, and I'll tell you, the major feeling I'm getting from this is deceit. She said, I don't like this. I just feel deceit. And I already knew he was lying to me, so I'm like, yep. And she said, all I see is a young man, a small room, and an open door. That's all I see. Everything else is black.
Wow.
I said, okay. So we decided that she and I and one other member of ours was going to go tackle this ones ourselves, because we were already booked like a month out in advance.
Okay.
And the next weekend I was going to Scarefest up in Kentucky. And it's like, let's knock this out, get it done with.
Okay.
We'll do a cleansing. We'll get out of there and be done with it. We don't have to add it on. So on a Thursday night, we went to go do this.
Okay.
That place was affecting me big time. because I was already angry with him before I ever got there.
Okay.
And I'm usually very professional, but I did not like this guy. I did not want to be there. It's like the whole negative around it was affecting me. And it was affecting Colleen too.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, so there's a really negative situation here. We go in, and I am not kidding you. I couldn't even make this up. Walk into the place, and I hear, and there's no carpeting. It's like a tile floor. Walk in, and I hear crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, what the heck? I can't even make this up. There were at least 30 cockroaches every time you stepped. The walls were literally moving.
It'd be, forget the demons. That's
I'm
it.
telling you.
I'm out of here. Bye.
The couch was moving. Everything was moving. All the lights in the place were on. And it's like, you couldn't even put your bags down in there because they'd be full of cockroaches. I went back outside. I put my bags down. It's like they're safer out here than they are in there.
Oh, see, that's right. Oh, no. And let me tell you something. I mean, I live down here in Florida, and you have roaches, and you can't escape it, bugs, whatever.
Right.
You know, that I can handle. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're describing crunch, 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 no.
And that goes hand in hand with demonic infestation. A lot of times, are insect infestations.
Really?
Oh, yes. And so I'm like, okay. And I had already told the family to stay outside, that we were going to go in and do the walkthrough. I had the feeling, just from talking to him, that he was attention seeking.
Okay.
So, like, he really didn't have any real intention of stopping anything he was doing.
And who was living there? Was he was what?
It was him, his pregnant girlfriend, who was like 18.
Okay.
And had the mentality of a 12-year-old. And I mean, I'm not being mean. She really did.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And then his mother, his 60-year-old mother that looked like she was 90. So she'd had a really hard life too.
Okay.
They're all living in this little tiny house that's a tiny 2-bedroom double bungalow type thing.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. We walk in. Colleen walks straight. When you walked in, there's like a tiny living room here. On the right, there was a kitchen on the left. You walk straight ahead, there's a tiny bathroom, a little hallway to the master bedroom and to the mother's bedroom.
Okay.
We walked straight ahead and go in that tiny bathroom. And I mean, it was so small, the two of us could not get in the bathroom at the same time. So I stood out in the hallway while she was picking up, and there were roaches everywhere.
Oh.
And I'm like, don't touch the wall, don't touch anything, don't, Ugh. And she's like over here towards, like, she's feeling the feeling that's coming from the wall to the right.
Okay.
And she said, what's behind this wall? And I said, I don't know. Let's go find out. So went out in the hall, went down the short little hall, opened up the door, and there was the master bedroom.
Okay.
On that wall was a closet door.
All right.
Opened up the closet door to a shower of cockroaches in our hair. I'm not kidding. All over us.
Okay.
I'm picking them out of her hair. She's picking them out of my hair. It's like, oh my God, this nightmare is not going to end.
That is.
And there on the shelf is an Ouija board.
Ah.
I take it off the shelf and open it up, and it has a pentagram in blood on the planchette.
What?
I am furious. I am so angry. And I turned to Colleen and I said, okay, so there you go. I said, the deceit is this guy's been lying about this the entire time. Yes. I said, the young man is standing out there. The small room is the closet, and the open door is the Ouija board. It opened the door.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I walked outside, and I have never done this before, and I've never done it again. I walked out there, and I called him out in front of his mother and his girlfriend. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I have no intention of helping you. I said, unless you go in there and get that Ouija board and rip it in 7 pieces, I said, I will take my bags and we will leave here right now if you refuse to do that. And he was looking at me like, I cannot believe you just called me out in front of my, and Colleen looked like, if you didn't say it, I was gonna, type thing. I mean, I
Well,
was
you
so
know what?
angry.
And it even leads you to believe, how truthful was he when he told you that 3 other groups had
Yep.
gone out there and nobody had helped him? Is like, who knows if that was true, or if they had gone out there and found themselves in the same
And
predicament like you
exactly,
and said,
exactly. It probably said, "I'm not going to help you.
exactly, we're out of
You
here.
brought this on yourself."
Uh-huh.
And so I stood there and I waited for him and I waited for him. And the girlfriend was going, well, Richie, go in and get the board. They're going to leave. Go get the board. And he just stands there. And I said, fine. I grabbed my bags and I started walking towards the car. And she's going, Richie, I told you not to put your blood on that thing. And I told you not to bring that board in the house because I told you I was possessed when I was 11. And I'm
Oh,
like, you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
you wasn't. Wow.
I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, I'm going to the car. I am so going to the car.
It's
And
like, okay, talk about two people should never have met.
So he goes back in the house and he grabs the Ouija board and comes back out, tears it in half, throws it on the ground and said, are you happy now? And I said, no, you got some more pieces to make. So I went back over there. I'm the one that tore it up. He didn't tear up the rest of it.
What was
I
his?
knew.
Did he explain to you what was he trying to do? I mean, besides the obvious of contacting the dead and out of putting his blood, what was he thinking of?
I don't know. I was so far removed at that point. I really probably should have just left. But I had already said that, so I went and got the sage and stuff. I told him I would sage each of them in turn. I said, because he had to go into the house with me to take the house back.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So we start saging and I'm saging him. And all of a sudden I hear from behind me, I hear Colleen say, oh my God, that's never a good thing.
No.
And I
It's
just
not
keep
a good
going.
thing.
I'm listening, but I keep going.
Especially after you've had roaches rain on you. That's not
I
a good
know. And she's like, and I heard Rose say, did you see that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? What is it? And he gets done. And I said, tell your mother to come up here so we can sage her.
thing. Uh-huh.
After he walked away, I said, what did you see? And she said, a half a man came out of him and it was just the legs stepped out of him.
Oh.
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And she said, no. And so the last thing I have them do once I sage them is when the smoke is coming up, put their hands in it and wash it over their head.
Right.
And say once for the Father, once for the Son, and once for the Holy Spirit. He couldn't say it. He could not say it. I had to say it for him. He couldn't say it. And I knew he was possessed. I knew he still had at least a half a man in him.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, this is not going to end well.
So let me ask you, was he at this point, by the time, you guys, was he really legitimately scared of what was happening?
No. He tried to act like he was, but he wasn't scared. And they took the board after we ripped it into pieces and that. And I told him, I said, you have to bury this on consecrated ground. Mm-hmm. And he said, can't we just throw it in the neighbor's garbage? No, you can't.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And he says, well, we don't have a car. And I said, there is literally a church on every corner in Huntsville.
Yeah.
Walk. Literally walk down to the corner and bury it in the ground. And he said, okay, he would do that tomorrow. So we set the pieces of the board against the privacy fence. So it's still in their yard. Okay.
Okay.
So we go to, I turn around, I get done saging her mother and the girl. And I turn around, put more sage in the sage bowl because I'm going in the house now. We're going to go take back the house. And all of a sudden, Colleen said, oh my God, did you see what just came out of that house? I said, no. What did you see? And she said, I'm not going to tell you.
That's
I
not
said,
good.
I got to go in there,
That's
and
not
she
good.
She said, until we get this done, she said, I'm not going to tell you. She said, I'll tell you afterwards. I said, okay, fine. I said, I'm going in, cover me. So we went in, and it was a big joke to him.
Okay.
I mean, he was smiling and half laughing. Mm-hmm. Couldn't say, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It was a big joke. And so I knew it wasn't going to do much.
Okay.
Okay, so I did what I was going to do, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And we left there, and I told him, you have to take that board and bury it on consecrated ground. Oh, we'll do that tomorrow morning. We'll do that tomorrow morning. I wasn't gone 5 minutes, and I got a phone call from the girl saying, something just jumped into Mama. She's in the house, and she's knocking all the salt off the windowsills, and she's chasing us around. She says she's going to kill us. You got to come back. I said, I am not coming back. I said, I told you all that it wasn't going to work. I told you you had to bury that board. They're still tied to it. I said, you opened the door. It's still in your yard.
Yep.
And she says, well, what do we do? And I said, take it to consecrated ground and bury it. So about 45 minutes later, I got another phone call saying, we took it down to the church down on the corner, and we left it in the parking lot.
Okay.
They didn't bury it. They just threw it in the parking lot.
What don't they understand about burying consecrated ground?
I don't know. So, and this story is important, and you'll see why in just a second. But
okay.
We got done that night, and it's like we're so done with this one. So done. All the guy wanted to know was what was in his house. He wanted to know,
Yeah.
he just wanted the attention.
Yeah.
And I asked Colleen, I said, what did you see come out of that house? She said it looked like a scraggly coyote standing on its hind two legs and red eyes.
Holy crap.
She said, and as you turned towards the house with the sage bowl, it came out of the house, went around the corner to where the board was.
Oh.
And I said,
that was a smart move on her part, not telling you that.
I was going in anyway, but anyway.
Yeah, but still, come on.
I'm like, I'm done with this guy.
Think
I'm
about
so
it. If she would have told you, I just saw a scraggly dog on its two hind legs with red eyes.
I don't know. Oh my gosh. So the next day, I literally went on Facebook, and he was showing off a new tattoo he had. He had gotten a swastika that was 6 inches by 6 inches on his arm. It had to cost it at least $300.
Probably.
Yet he didn't have any money to go out and buy some bug spray,
Yeah.
But, I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this guy. I'm so done.
Well, yeah, those are people that no matter whatever you could do, even if it was your best, your ultimate best,
yep,
it wouldn't matter.
That weekend, we went to Scarefest. And my thought process is, finally, some time to decompress, talk to my friend. One of my good friends was going to be there. I was going to talk to him about it, about how I'm so uneasy about what's coming, and I don't want to do it, and all this. I get there, and we do this Scarefest thing all day. It was a lot of fun, great fun. That night, I sat there, and I was telling him, I said, man, I'm so not comfortable in the direction this is going. I'm not ready for this. And he kept saying, God would not put you in battle and not give you the tools to fight. He said, you're ready for this. You just need some confidence. And I'm like, but the only way to get confidence is to actually do it. And I don't want to do it. So therein lies the problem. And he kept saying, look, you have all the tools you need. You have them all. I'm sitting there going, well, he's my friend. He's supposed to tell me this, so
right.
It really didn't do a lot of good to talk about it. So the next day we went back to Scarefest, and they close on Sundays at noon. So there's the day before there was 15,000 people there. Mm-hmm. On Sunday, there were maybe 500 people. You could go up to any of the paranormal stars and talk to them for half an hour and not bother anybody.
Yeah, because everybody had left.
Yeah. So it was like, this is great. I'm loving this. He says, I've got someone I want you to meet. And I said, okay. So we go up to this lady that's standing behind the booth thing, and she's got books there. So I'm figuring she's an author. And he says, Andrea, he said, I want you to meet my friend Rita. And Andrea says, oh, so nice to meet you. And she comes around and she hugs me, and I'm going, okay, who's this lady? Because normally, they don't come and hug you. It's, hi, how you doing? Give you a handshake. Right. And I'm thinking, well, she knows my friend, so any friend of his is a friend of mine type thing. That's what I'm saying in my head. And he says, Andrea, he said, Rita, he said, this is Andrea Perrin. She is one of the daughters that actually lived through in the house of The Conjuring.
Oh, The Conjuring, yes.
And he said, and she actually lived 10 years in that house with that demon. And he said, I think you need to talk to her. And she looked
Wow.
at me and she said, you need to read my book. And I thought, okay, a sales pitch.
Okay.
And she actually ended up changing my life
You're,
that day. And I'm thinking at that time, I'm going, okay, a sales pitch. And she goes, and she looked at me. She knew what I was thinking. And she said, no, you don't understand. You need to read my book. And I got to thinking, if I'm going to have to fight demons, she's lived with one, who better to, and I'm like, okay. And he said, yeah, we'll take one of your books. Would you go ahead and sign it for it? And she said, oh, sure, sure. So she went and sat down and she started writing in the book. All of a sudden she looks up and she goes, oh, I have a message for you. And I'm like, okay. I said, you're a sensitive. And she said, oh yeah. And she reaches out and she starts writing some more and she doesn't say anything else. And I'm like, okay.
all right. So much for the message.
Yeah, she gets done with the writing in the book and she looks up at me and gives me the book. And I said, did you want to share the message with me? She said, oh, I wrote it in your book. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And she comes around the other side and she said, and she gives me this big hug. And I'm thinking, she's hugging me a lot longer than a normal. She's actually reading my energy is what I was getting. And all of a sudden she whispers in my ear, you have all the tools. That freaked me the heck out.
I bet.
It freaked me the heck out. And I did the one thing I absolutely hate when people do, and I did it.
What?
I said, how did you know that? I have a team full of psychics.
Yeah.
Hello? But it so took me by surprise. I just, holy
This was somebody you
crap.
had just met.
Yeah, who didn't know me from Adam's house cat, And so, and I remember reading the message in the book, and it said, to Rita, best wishes on your journey, you walk in the light. And I went, okay. That's why I had to come to Scarefest, is because I was supposed to meet this lady.
Yes.
That was for my confidence. And I'm like, wow, okay. So, everything that was happening.
Right, like another nudge in that direction.
Yes, it's like, keep going, keep going. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get back home. 2 weeks later, I have to go back to Dream Makers where I get the dragon's blood and sage and stuff. And I get a phone call while I'm there.
Okay.
And this guy, it's really loud in Dream Makers. They have like this centering thing that's just a loud droning. And I couldn't hardly hear what the guy was saying, but I heard him say Richie's name, the guy with the cockroaches.
Oh.
And I'm like, if I were you, I would stay as far away from this guy as possible. And I'm going, I'm sorry, let me walk outside because I really can't hear you. And so I walk outside and I said, I'm sorry, who did you say this was? And he said, I'm Bishop James Gibson out of Tennessee. I was contacted by Richie to do an exorcism. He said he told me, yes, he said, he told me that you did an investigation there. I was wondering if you would write it up for me and send it to my email. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to. I said, I am so sorry. I thought you were another group that he contacted to come in there and do nothing.
But it almost seems, though, that he was always stepping it up and crying boo-hoo to to the new person, saying, yeah, this person came before.
Yeah.
And maybe this bishop said, okay, let me get the real scoop.
Yep. And so I did. I wrote it all up that weekend and I shot it to him. And he called me that Monday and he said, this guy's going to take at least 3 priests and many people holding him. And I said, I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And he said, I want to know if you would consider being my investigative team for my church. He said to investigate demonic situations.
And I'm going to interrupt you real quick, Rita. What do you think? Why do you think that this? Because this sounds like the entire household. It wasn't just this one man.
Yeah, no,
it was the entire household. Because Mama was running after everybody.
Yeah.
What do you think? What was he trying to accomplish by bringing in help? I mean, I could understand the paranormal teams where he knew. But here he is, he got a hold of you, and now he even stepped up the game, and he was getting exorcists to come.
He was
Was he
trying to
trying
get
to do like
exorcists to come.
mocking it, or what was he trying to prove?
Yes, and attention. He was massive, massive, all about me type person,
Okay.
and it's like, oh, what was me? So you come down, you give me a lot of attention, and
Okay.
that's what I think his thing was. But the whole reason that we got called in was to get a bishop on our team. And from that point, we had a bishop on our team. I had
Okay.
just been saying, Lord, if you want me to do this, you
Right.
know, I got to have somebody helping us out here, and sure
Okay.
enough. And I said, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. A month later, I had a shaman on my team. It's
Okay.
like, I've got everything I need. And it's like, and I'm now doing, and Colleen had told me, I don't know, a month before that
Okay.
at some point that we would be actually taking over where the Warrens left off,
Okay.
and we would be actually doing cases for the church.
Okay.
And here it was a month later. She was right.
Yes.
And so that was the first one that I got on my team. And that's how I actually got into this.
And
And then,
because you have to tell me. So what happened? Did the bishop go out there? Did you guys go out there back
no,
to
no,
Richie?
no. The bishop told Richie that, first of all, he went through his different Facebook pages and stuff. He
Okay.
said, you have 32 groups of paranormal on your webpage. You have to denounce the paranormal. You have to step away from it. And
Uh,
you have to show me that you can do that for 6 months before I will agree to come there. He
okay.
said, you will also have to have a psychiatric evaluation done so that I know that you don't have schizophrenia or something that is medically a problem
Right.
to do. And he wasn't willing to do any of
I
it.
was about to tell you. Yeah, I
He
don't
wouldn't
think he
buy
was
a
going to.
can of bug spray. He's not going to get a psychic evaluation, a
No.
psycho,
No.
that's not going to happen. So, and he didn't. And for months after that, he would send me emails going, what did y'all see in my house? What did y'all see in my house? And it's like, I'm not telling you.
A lot of roaches. Oh.
Yeah, I know.
But, and you know what? And finally what happened? He just faded away or what?
He did. He finally just, I guess, went on to another group, and I
Yeah,
don't
because
know,
I was
probably,
going to say, I bet you that he didn't just stop with you guys or,
yeah,
with the bishop. He finally went and got somebody else to play the I've been abandoned and nobody's helping me.
exactly. Exactly. And I started out basically doing just what I said I was going to do. I was, the priests were doing the exorcisms, and I was like videotaping it type thing. If
Okay.
I needed to hold someone down, I would do that kind of thing. And it got further and further into it where our senior priest, we ended up having 3 exorcist priests on our team.
Okay.
And it got to the point where the senior one, he was being attacked so bad he couldn't do it anymore. And the other one, he was being attacked as well. And then he got like a full-time job, so he really couldn't
Okay.
um, do much that way. And the other one, his health was so poor. I think he actually, the one who had asked us to actually do the investigations for him, his health was already so poor. He had to have like I think it was a quadruple bypass.
Okay.
So he wasn't well enough to actually do them himself. So
Okay.
he was just sanctioning us doing them for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it got to a point where it's like my team no longer has any clergy on it.
Okay.
And I had often thought about, because of my faith, that, I wanted to be a reverend, an evangelist. I wanted to help people that nobody else is helping.
Okay.
And that turned out to be in the demonic realm. And it just became very clear that was my path, that's where he kept steering me. Every time I said no, he showed
Okay.
me, I got your back. And
And just
so
go
that's where I
forward.
ended up. Yes. And I've been going forward ever since. And now we see the worst of the worst.
And well, I'm not going to go into details because I know you showed me the clips of this last investigation that you were at, and that was disturbing, is to put it mildly.
It was very,
That case it went beyond disturbing. And I already shared with you my own concerns when I saw that. Everybody thinks, besides the supernatural aspect, the demonic, just concerned for the safety of you and your team. But if we go beyond that, after what I saw, when you say the worst of the worst, you're not exaggerating. You are talking the worst of the worst. And I'm going to vouch that she's very accurate because, like I said, she took me into her confidence and shared some clips with me that I saw. And you see my hair standing up? It was out to here. I was, it was, scary is not a good word. Scary is like when you see a horror movie. It was
Right.
something that you see, dangerous. It was like, it was like you could see, the word I'm thinking of is like evil,
Absolutely.
or the
Absolutely.
potential there for more of it.
Oh,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
And, we, and this is, this is about one of the only times that I saw something like, that was something like what you see in the movies. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, that it was, from, Sergeant Sarchi from, Deliver Us from Evil, that they did a movie. I think it was like a couple of years ago that he worked with the Warrens. He was a sergeant for the New York Police Department, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
where they actually got somebody tied down, or
Yeah.
chained to the chair,
Hmm.
and you guys had to do something similar.
I
And that's the
did.
only
I
part that
did.
you could say, well, that's over the top, but in a way, thank God you guys had this person restrained, because
Yeah.
otherwise it would have been, I don't know
When you
what that would have been, to
when
be
you
honest
walk
with you.
into a situation where you have a demonically possessed person wielding a knife, you have to make a decision. Are you really
Yes.
going to put yourself in that danger? Are you going to put your group in that danger?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation that if we didn't do that, he would be dead now, and so would his family.
Yes.
I mean, it
Yes.
was to that point.
And that's not an overstatement. That's not an
No,
overstatement at all. Seeing
no.
what I saw, that's not like you're being dramatic about it. No, it's a matter of fact, it, that whole situation from end to end. Um, and I was surprised because when you thought that, well, I looking at it from the outside, you were saying they're done, and you were like, no, we're not done. There's still more in there.
Yep, yep.
Um, so this person, and you could tell that as it progressed, more of him was coming forward.
Yes.
You
As we
know,
got the demons out, more of him could come through.
right? Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Versus at the beginning, it was like
He
there
was
was nothing
completely
like
gone.
that, like
No, he
him.
was completely gone.
There was nothing like him there.
Yeah.
And like you kept pushing forward, like saying, no, there's still something else there that we haven't finished. In other words,
Right, right.
and I'm gonna Rita, I'm gonna bring this up because, and I know a lot of people think of that a lot of times these situations of possessions, that it is strictly there's no supernatural. It's all mental illness.
No,
And we were talking about it earlier, and everything, that this doesn't, one thing doesn't, you can't it doesn't have to be either or. You can have somebody that's got a mental illness and they
absolutely.
have this situation, and all it does is make it worse.
Yes. A
Oh,
mental illness many times makes you an open channel. And
okay.
that makes it even easier for this to come in.
Okay. And by the same token, just because you have somebody with a mental illness and they do have the exorcism, that doesn't mean they're cured either. They still have to deal
No,
with the problem that they have in their brain.
absolutely. One of the things we do is I have an aftercare sheet that I
Hmm.
give these people after the exorcism, things you need to do. And you need to do the homework
Right.
because a lot of people I've found over the years think it's just a lot easier to just call Rita and she'll do another one.
Yes.
And I don't have time to do that. I am so far booked out because there aren't a lot of people that do this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um,
They're absolutely not.
there are other groups that do it, that it's an 8 month to sometimes a year and a half wait, and these people will be dead by then. So I mean, there's so much at stake. I don't have time to keep going back again and again if somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do to keep them out.
Now, let me ask you
If
something, and I'm curious. In a case like this, like you said, here
Yeah,
you did all this work, your team went out there. Wouldn't, if you ever had to go back a second time because this person just,
and we have had to
aren't they
before.
more resistant? Isn't it more of a challenge as far
No,
as,
no,
no?
it's actually easier because the
Really?
the demons that are back haven't been in there very long.
Oh,
They
okay,
haven't been
okay,
in there nearly as long, so their foothold is not nearly as deep as the first time.
okay, okay,
And usually it's not the same demon that comes back in. That's a misnomer too. If you send them to the cross
okay,
to be dealt with, they're gone. Now there's always others to take their place, and
okay,
they can actually emulate a demon that's been there before, making you think it's the same one, but they're not. They're not the same ones.
okay. And you said, you mentioned to me that you had a case coming up with a Dionysus um, demon, and I said, "What is that?" And you said that that was like a
That is it's what the pagans used to worship as Pan,
yes, right, exactly,
Dionysus,
right.
and basically it is basically Satan. It's basically Satan.
And how do you know ahead of time that that's what it is? Is it because one of the psychics told you, or the person that's calling you in? How would you know that ahead of time?
I have my own gifts,
Okay,
and everybody in our group has gifts, and we all get our information in different ways,
okay,
and then we put that information together, and that's how we come up with. And in the last several years, so far they've not been incorrect yet.
okay, yeah, I see
So
what you mean.
yeah, so I mean, we take our information from all the different areas, put it all together for the big picture. And that's how I knew which one it was going to be. We were told which one it was going to be.
Okay.
And there's others in there, but that's the biggest one that's in him right now.
And usually when you go in there, do you tackle the worst one first, or is it
Oh,
the other way around?
it depends on which one presents itself first.
Okay.
Um, Now, for the one that we're going to be doing, because I know its name, I will probably try to tackle him first because he's been in there the longest, and he'll be
Okay.
the hardest one to get out. Once you get the hardest one out, all the other ones are going, well, crap, if he couldn't stay,
Right.
what chance have I got,
Yeah.
type thing. And it's usually a domino effect after that, but getting that one out can take quite a while.
So, and let me ask you, when you say a long time, are we talking somebody that's an adult and this started with them when they were children? What are we talking about as far as something that's been there a long time?
Um, it depends. Like this particular one has been with this guy since probably early teens.
Okay.
And he's like in his 30s now, so it's
Yeah.
had a good foothold on him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for some people to imagine because it's so gradual how these things take you over.
Okay.
Uh, and it can be as simple as, I've got all these aches and pains. The doctor can't find out why I hurt. I'm
Okay.
always sick. I don't know, and it's all these things that they do. They try to break down your body. They try to isolate you. They try
Right.
to, make you so that you're always at the throats of the people you love and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. They want you isolated. They want you depressed. They want you anxious. All of these things. They want you hurting. They want you to just do yourself in, basically.
Right. Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah.
And what do sometimes when the people contact you, do they recognize, like you said, that this guy got this one when he was a teenager? Does he know a specific event or what something that he was doing when in those years or when he was a
I tend to
teenager?
freak people. I tend to freak people out a little bit because usually before I even talk to them,
Okay.
I will go to my guides and ask them what we're dealing with.
All right.
Like usually they'll send me like a through the website, a message form through the website or an email or something to that. And I will immediately go to my guides and say, okay, what am I really dealing with here? And they will tell me there's shadow people. There's a curse on the land. There's a generational curse. There's,
Right.
this one, this one, this one. Well, how many? And I'll say, well, they've got, 5 people there. How many does this one have? And they'll tell me, and they can tell me exactly the names of them.
Okay.
They can tell me, and what it's doing to them. So by the time I get on the phone with them, I'm telling them what's going on there, and they're just like blown away. How did you know that? How did you
Right.
know that? We're just very, very fortunate that we have guides that we can communicate with that can give us that information.
And Rita, have you ever had people who contact you thinking that their situation is going to get resolved with an exorcism, and then when you talk to them, and then like you said, you consult with your guides and with the psychics, you realize that isn't the situation that's going on?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, let's say somebody contacts you, and because they think that for whatever reason that they've got a demon in either in themselves or a family member, and by the time you, like you said, you talk to them
Yeah.
and you consult. Have you ever run across a point where you realize this is not a demon? This is not
Oh, yes.
This is not
Yeah.
an exorcism scenario where
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I have. And I will ask them questions, and usually then that indicates it's not often that I've run across a situation like that. Usually by the time somebody contacts me, it truly is a demon.
Okay.
I truly believe that the only calls I get are from people the Lord has sent our way to help.
Okay.
And so I've only had one instance like what you're talking about, and it was a legitimate medical,
Right.
malady that person had.
And I know what you're saying, that sometimes, you get both things. It's not that the person
Right.
doesn't have some type of sickness or disease or illness, and,
Right.
you have both.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying this, is that, and I'm sure you've seen it, lately, back, you remember that back in, I think it was 73 when The Exorcist came out, everybody got stirred up about, even though exorcisms and possessions have been around before that,
Yeah.
that brought it back into like modern
Yes.
times.
Right.
And then, it kind of died away, even though they had done all these movies. But lately, there's been a spate of, a lot of the reality shows where possessions and demons are, and that's why I asked you, I said, do you ever get people that are contacting you because they get influenced by these shows, when in reality, they might just be having maybe other types of problems, but they go from 0 to 60,
Yeah.
they might not be having something as severe as,
I get kind of tickled
demonic
because
possession.
people will say, like, did you watch this movie, about this exorcism, whatever? And
Right.
honestly, I do not watch any movies about exorcism at all, because the demons can literally take that knowledge and use it against you.
Okay.
I don't need them putting something into my head, something I've seen that scares me. I don't need them using that against me,
Okay.
kind of thing. So I don't actually watch any movies on exorcisms.
Okay.
But yeah, back before things got as dark as they have, every once in a while you'd get someone that was, an attention seeker is basically what they are.
Okay.
They watch, the paranormal stuff all the time, and
Right.
they've started taking pictures in their house, and now they think that the dust orbs are
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
demons
Somebody
and-
that's
yeah.
like, how did you go for exactly like you said, from
Yeah.
orbs to I need
Yeah.
to get exercise? It's like, wait, there's a huge
Yeah,
difference
huge
between one and the other.
chasm in there of difference. But it's like once we started doing the demons,
Mm-hmm.
it's like from what I was told by a bishop, was that they basically, you're in a book, and we're marked. We're just as marked as the weak people are that get possessed.
Okay.
We're very well known in the underworld. We have taken out many demons.
Okay.
And so therefore, only thing we get are demons that really want to crack at us.
Okay.
And those are the people that contact us, and those are the ones that we try to help, because they legitimately do. And like I said, I always contact my guides prior to make sure of what is really going on, what are we
Mm-hmm.
really up against, and they will tell us if there's some mental illness going on. They will tell us, which demons they have, their names of the demons, what they're doing to that person.
Okay.
I mean, we've got very specific information. So,
And can somebody, let's say, because I know that I know that there always has to be some type of permission around. Can somebody, let's say a wife and a husband, where one can ask for, I want my husband, let's say, exorcised. Can you do it if
no,
the person that's being exorcised is not granted permission, or do they have
no,
to agree to it?
they have to literally give over their free will, wanting this thing gone, or it's
Okay.
not going to go anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, I can knock my socks off and not get it to go anywhere, because if this person doesn't believe that there's something going on with them,
Right.
or they just enjoy their demons too much to want to get rid of them,
Right.
I can't make it go. They literally have to denounce it and literally have to hand over their free will to me,
Okay.
basically stating, I want this thing gone.
Okay.
And that's, otherwise, no, it won't go anywhere.
So
So
that
no,
thing of, as much as, in other words, yeah, there has to be that acceptance and that permission
yes,
given for it to go forward.
yes,
And a lot of people, again, don't realize that ultimately, that thing about free will, it even boils
yes.
down to something like that, where, you
It's
can't be
all or
made.
nothing. It's all or nothing. Absolutely. And I have run into cases where we had one where a girl had like a legion in her, and I was able to get out every single one except one.
Okay.
And it's because that last 2% of her free will she would not give up. And she literally told me, it's just really hard for me to do that. I'm just a controlling type of person. I don't like to give up my free will. Well, then you're
Okay.
not going to give up all your demons.
And
And
she held on to that part, huh?
she held on to it for hours. I'm
Okay.
trying. I'm really trying. No, you're not really trying. You don't actually want it gone. And it was a very, it's very, it's so exasperating, because you're giving all your energy. You are, and we don't get paid for anything we do. We
Right.
don't ask for anything, So
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming if you're calling me, it's because you really want these things gone. You're tired of your life being ruined.
Exactly.
And I don't take kindly to playing games, because I got a lot of people out there that do need help.
Exactly.
And it took a while. It took a couple weeks for her to actually let go that free will enough to want it out, and was able to get it, the last one, out.
Let me. How many women? And I'm bringing this up because usually the role of exorcist has usually been dominated by men.
Right.
Okay, and I'm not talking. I'm not talking about the war between the sexes. This is I
Right.
believe is a fact.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is.
how many other women exorcists are there besides you in
I
this
don't know
role?
the actual number. I don't know the
I
actual
don't think there's
number.
that many. Is my point.
There's not many. There's not many. There are, I know there's several that have popped up in TV here in the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know what kind of credentials they really have. I
Okay.
really don't know. But I mean, and that's not, and I don't mean that to put them down.
Oh, no, no,
I'm
no,
just
no, no. I
saying,
know what you're saying.
by a standard of, you are an exorcist type thing, by an accepted faculty of clergy. I don't know how many of them are, but they are, I believe, can be very effective. They don't have to be clergy to do this.
Right.
Christ gave everybody, everybody that believes and follows him, he gave them the authority to throw out demons.
Right.
So you can do this. I mean, you don't have to be clergy. You just get a little bit extra anointing, they think, is what
Okay.
they tell you. But exorcisms were done long before Christ came,
Yes.
and in all different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is more of a mainstream thing. So I don't really know how many female ones there are, and in the different cultures. Some cultures, most of them are women that do it.
And
And so,
as a matter of fact, I remember one time. This is I'm not gonna say which specific story because it was out in the. But I remember there was one where the family was, uh, they were calling it demonic. I really think it was not that quite severe. But anyway, they belonged to a church. They were not Catholic. I want to say it was either evangelic or Pentecostal or something like this, and they did like a deliverance ceremony. But that reverend did it at his church. He did
yeah,
not go anywhere near where they lived. No way.
it's dangerous to do that.
Yeah. And I was like, this guy was, I want to help you from here,
Yeah.
from inside my church.
And that has been something we've talked about as well. But I've also found out that most truly demonically possessed people can't
Okay.
walk into a church,
Okay.
have a very hard time getting anywhere near it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had ones where we have done them at the church and had to go out there and pull them out of the vehicles. Took two
Okay.
or three of us to pull them out of a vehicle and to actually get them into a church.
Okay.
So it's very hard. Then you've also got the whole safety aspect of here you are going to meet someone you've never met before.
Yes.
And, I have literally done a case where there was one gang on this side, another gang on this side, and in the middle was an apartment complex where this person lived.
It's like,
And their husband was a gang member.
wow.
And it's like they stood outside the door the entire time we were there. And we knew if we slipped up for any reason, if something happened, we weren't getting out of there. And we didn't know that before we got there, obviously.
Yeah, it was one of
But
those like, yeah, once you get there, you're like, okay.
yeah, we've been waiting for you. Here we are. And, you know,
Which I'm sure they were all but carrying a bunch of stuff along themselves. I'm sure.
oh, definitely. Definitely. And that was another consideration is we do run into that where, the wife wants it done or the husband wants it done. The wife doesn't believe they have anything, but they do.
Right.
And this person now is going to go back with an infected person, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably just an amount of time before they become infected again.
Exactly. Because it's like,
And then you have to go, okay, you have to weigh well, is it worth doing it? Because, you know, they're
if
going to
you're
get
gonna fight,
infected.
it's gonna come right back to that.
But then on the other hand, my guide says, even 6 months without the demons, this person could do a lot more and be productive without them, even if it's just 6 months.
And you know
And
what?
in that 6 months time, you don't know what's going to happen to this other person either.
And you do see, and I know some people look at it like, oh, that's a bad thing. But you know what, Rita? It's around this time that you see a lot of couples split up.
Absolutely.
And people say, oh, well, that's too bad. And you go, if you look at it from the point of view of like, oh, but sometimes that splitting up is the best thing that can happen,
Absolutely.
at
I agree.
least to one of those people, because this is the only way that they can basically stay
Yep.
out of that scenario. Because, like you said, if they stay together with that other person, it's only a question of time,
Yep.
and or there's something there that the attraction that was there before that brought them together and the lifestyle, whatever it was. And sometimes it is exactly like what you said. They both got each of their own thing going on. All of a sudden, that attraction, that it's not
Is
there
no more.
anymore. It's gone. One of them
Exactly.
is like, I'm out of
This
here.
person has decided, I want my soul back. I want to go. I want to go, I want to get an education. I want to do this. I want to do that. All the things I couldn't do because I felt too bad when I had the demons.
Right.
And now this person is like, I don't know you at all anymore.
Well, and this is the thing, usually once, let's say, like you said, I decide I'm going to go back to school. there's other lifestyle changes that come with that. Maybe the people that you
Absolutely.
were both hanging out with, one of them is like, I don't want to hang out with those people anymore. Or I don't
Yeah.
want to do that anymore. I don't want to do the drugs if there was drug use, of course.
Right.
All these things that before that,
Yep.
hey, we're both enjoying this is not there anymore. And
Exactly.
a lot of people, or sometimes they just don't understand it. And one of them is like, I don't want to be here anymore. And all of a sudden it's like if like they took a blindfold off their eyes and they
Yep.
look at this other person and they say, guess what? What am I doing here?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think, my point being that sometimes it's the shift that takes place on a spiritual plane, you know, that sometimes they don't even understand it themselves. Why all of a sudden this person that maybe before you came along, it's all your fault. They were
Always
totally
is.
content with, you know, and then afterwards they're like, this is not where I want to be. This is not who I want to be with. I thought, like you said, their future plans totally shift from probably no future to possibilities.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's like there's a lot of falling away of things in a person's
Yep.
life
Yep.
after stuff like that, including their relationships,
Yep.
and especially if the other person's not on board to move in that direction. And
True.
like I said, I'm very because I have had experience with certain things, and I usually see it that especially when you see a couple that been in a relationship for quite some time, it's
Hmm.
very rare you see one that is and the other one that isn't. There's
True.
something there that attracted them from the very beginning.
Yep.
Okay, that there was a common denominator between both of them. Maybe one
Hmm.
was worse than the other, but I
Yeah.
very rarely would see one where one is just like you said, totally a problem, and the other one is like a little lamb. It's like, no, that doesn't work that way.
No.
And like you said, and what if you have one that's agreed to as an exorcism, and the other one's in denial? There's nothing wrong with me.
Yep.
What do
Yep.
you, let
And
me
you
ask you,
can't
what
make
do
it.
you do when have you ever had that resistance where maybe even the one that called you guys in after you do the exorcism on their spouse, you turn around and you tell them, well, guess what? Now we need to do one on you. Have you ever had one that said, me? What are you talking about? I called you guys in. I'm good.
Usually, what I do is before we ever get there, when I'm talking to them, I'm telling them, you've got these people in your family. This one has five in them. This one's got three in them. This one's got, and you've got 24 in you. You've got, and that's just the way it is. And, you can make up your own mind. I said, whether or not, I said, you sit there and you tell me I'm right about everything I'm telling you about your husband, but now you got to take a look at yourself because you've
Okay.
got this many. And, yours is causing you pain. It's causing you sickness. Well, yeah, I stay sick all the time and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've got pain all the time, but it's the fear of the unknown
Yes.
more than anything at that point that makes them dig in their heels. And a lot of times it's like once they see how much better their loved one feels once it's done, that
Okay.
they'll say, okay, you know, we do, we do it very humanely. I
Okay.
mean, very humanely. And I'm always, I will stroke their face and let them know it's okay. We understand, and, that if I get a little loud or whatever, I always tell them before it ever starts, I'm not talking to you.
Right.
I'm talking to the demon. If I'm talking to you, I will say your name. And
Right.
then, you answer. Otherwise, you just let whatever come through. And I'm not, we're there for you. We have families, we have lives too. There's other things we could be doing, but we choose to be there to help
Right.
you. And that's what we do. And we're, like I said, when they see how humane we are with this and how encouraging we are to them and that,
Okay.
usually then it's like, this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And I want mine out.
Well, and you know
So
what? Thank you, Hollywood, because unfortunately, a lot of people also have that Hollywood version going on in their head.
yes,
As far as, oh
it's
my
not
God,
always like that by any means.
and they're thinking, what's going to happen to me? So that, yeah, that they think that God, is this really going to happen to me? I thought this was only something that I would see in the movies, and absolutely not to me. And
Exactly.
have you ever? I know that you do stay in touch with them after the
Yeah.
fact.
Yep.
How have you ever stayed with somebody, let's say a few years afterwards, that you've said, wow, this was the turning point for them after they had the exorcism. This is where they basically,
Yes.
got off that course.
Yes. Yeah. There's been a couple of those. There's been several of them that, like, after a year or two, all of a sudden we'll start getting calls again from them.
Okay.
And it's like, something's not right, something's going on. And I know immediately, yeah, you've got 3 in you.
Okay.
When did this start coming back? And that is one thing I would tell them, these things, you're marked. They will come back. They
Okay.
will try to get back in. And if you don't do your homework and keep up your borders, do what we're telling you to do,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to stay gone. And they get complacent. They do it for a while and they feel so good and everything's great. And they just start thinking that, everything's gone. I'm good. I don't have to do that anymore. And then it starts creeping back in and creeping back in. And then here we go again.
So what you're saying is that once somebody has had that a demonic infestation or possession,
Mm-hmm.
even after an exorcism, a
Yeah.
successful exorcism,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to still be, like you said, a mark. What is it? They're
Definitely.
just more vulnerable,
They're
or
weak. They're seen by the demons as being weak
okay,
because they were possessed before. A
okay,
lot of them, have, they're wide open channel. Head trauma can cause you to be wide open.
yes,
Autism can cause you to be wide open.
yes, I've heard of
Uh,
that.
there's several, things that can happen to a person to make you a wide open channel. And when that happens, you have to learn what works for you to shut it down.
Okay,
And unfortunately, it's not something I can say, you do this and it works that way for everybody. It
mm-hmm,
doesn't. You have to find what works for you. And it can take a little while to find that. And I totally get that. And as long as you are trying to do, to keep it down, keep it out, to keep your borders up and that kind of thing, I don't mind going back and helping again if I have to.
right,
I don't mind that at all. I don't see that as their fault. It's just the people that we have people that they feel so good afterwards that they don't take their
yes,
medicine anymore. And I have that right on there. I am not a physician.
right. This
And
is
I may be taking out part of your problem, but it doesn't mean your other medical problems are going to go away. You'll probably
exactly.
feel a lot better than you felt in a while, so you'll think that your problems are gone, but they're not.
Oh no,
And
you still have a human body, that you have to attend to, and it's a
yes,
body can get sick or whatever. That's one thing has nothing to do with the other in a way,
exactly.
but I imagine, yeah, that a lot of people would want this to be the end all be all cure for everything.
I wish it was. I do wish it was, but it's not.
No, I'm sure it's not.
But it
It
can.
was probably making it a lot worse, though.
Oh, definitely. They totally make. They will. They will magnify whatever bothers you at least 10 times worse than what it would normally do. I
And
mean,
like you
they
said,
just
it makes you
they
don't
want you to give up.
cooperate with. If you need to take medicines, you don't take them. You become difficult to deal with all the people around you that would be trying to help you. You kind of try to like push them away. So, and Rita, I know you're out of Alabama. Do you? And I know you mentioned it to me before, but you do work in some of the surrounding states sometimes, right? If somebody has a
Yeah,
case there.
we go pretty good ways up into Tennessee. We do like the south. Let me think here. Now I'm so bad with directions. Um, the would be the northwest corner of Georgia. We've
Okay.
done. We go pretty much all over Alabama, pretty much. Um, up to like a 4 hour. That's pretty much the
Okay.
line
Travel
there.
time.
Travel time up to about 4 hours. because you got to understand, after doing an exorcism and all that,
back.
plus the drive 4 hours down, 4 hours back.
Yes.
I mean, you're tired. You're tired.
Absolutely. I can imagine. That's got to be exhausting.
We've done cases in Mississippi. We've done in Kentucky. We've even driven up to Chicago before on a special case. So,
and you mentioned, I know you mentioned to me last time that people could still contact you because even if they're far away, you might know someone in that area where they're at.
We have people that are making a database of people that do this sort of thing.
Okay.
And so we're building that database, and so it's possible that there might be someone in that area that we already know about. If not, we're still looking for those. And
right. So in other words, it's not like, okay, so if you're a few states away, you might still be able to help them just because on a referral basis for somebody else. Now, Rita, one story. This story is, to me, it's terrifying. It's great. When you described to me, and I'm going to go jump off to another. When you told me that story, because I had to ask you, well, Rita, what happens? Have you ever had any of these things, at home, on your personal life? And you mentioned to me that time that you had basically felt something at the foot of the bed.
Yeah.
Tell that story again, because let me tell you, I was... Okay, that'd be like, okay, there. I just, all my gray hair just went. I would have been totally.
It was bad. It was bad. I had done a case, and that day, and I made the mistake of literally calling out Satan. Okay. And he's like, okay, you want me? Here I am. And after the case was done, she had a legion in her. Okay. And and that's anywhere. It's defined anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 demons is a legion. So, saying a conservative number, she had 3,000. Okay. We got those out of her, and I remember saying it during that. I remember calling him out, and I went home that night, and I always do a holy water bath to get any attachments off of me. Mm-hmm. And I went to bed that night, and it takes me several hours to unwind after doing that. So it was quite late. It was probably about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And I had just gotten to sleep, and I felt something come up over the foot of the bed and literally started swallowing me whole. And I could feel my toes go numb. My feet went numb. My ankles are going numb. My calves are going numb. So it's literally coming up my body. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? And
I mean, like, think about it. It's like,
I'm like,
you must have been thinking in your mind, like, what is going on?
I was, and I knew it wasn't good, whatever it was.
Yeah, right. It's like, whatever. This is like.
But it's like, what is going on here? And I just happened to grabbed my phone. It was beside the bed. And I texted one of our members that's psychic. And I said, and I knew she wasn't up. She's never up at that time. But just so happens that night she was. Okay. And I explained to her what was going on. And I said, it's literally swallowing me whole. What do I do? And she texts back and she said, call Colleen immediately. And I knew, because I never call any of them that time of night. And for her to tell me to do that, and I'm thinking Colleen's asleep. She's not going to answer the phone. We just did this huge exorcism that day. Okay. I tried anyway. I called her, and she answered at first ring. And I said, Vanessa wouldn't tell me what was wrong. She just said something is really bad, that you need to go into astral immediately. And so while I was on the phone with her, she went into astral, and she literally took it off of me. Wow. And said that it was literally, she said she thought that was literally Satan himself. Wow. And I thought, well, that's what I get for calling him out.
Yeah. He took you up on your own. Yeah. I was like, okay. Yeah. All right. Here I am.
Like, well, pretty. Lesson learned.
And you must have, after that experience, I bet you don't. You've never done that
Unless
again, right?
I know it is him. I don't call him out on an exorcism, because otherwise he will show up. Okay. So unless I know that he is one of them that is there, then no, I don't call him out. I call out all of his henchmen, but I don't call him out.
Now, and I know that you've told me your book, ahead of time, like you already got all these things lined up, but was there ever a time before you even now, before you actually get the call about a certain case that you already know ahead of time what's coming down the pike?
Yes. There's times where I get attacked days prior to ever hearing from the case itself. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm going to be getting a call or two, and I will talk to my guides and say, last night I was getting attacked. Do I have an open portal in my house now? Or is this something that's coming? And they'll say, this is something that's coming. Okay. And sure enough, within a day or two, I will get a transmission from somebody. Okay.
And, because a lot of people, they don't realize that, in the spirit world or in otherworldly, the time is not measured the way we experience it.
No, it's not. It's not. They have no concept of time the way we do. And it can be days, it could be a week or more before I will literally get the call from the person. And the thing is once I talk to that person and I accept that case, I'm attacked daily by whatever demons are there.
I was about to say, what happens, besides that experience of somebody trying to swallow you, just little stuff like that. But, like what happened with our recording, which was that, what's happened to you that they like try to like basically like get you to change your mind about going?
I have been scratched. I was on another case and I was literally thrown into a wall 4 feet away.
Oh.
And head first into the wall. I've been pushed down. I've been, oh gosh, you name it. I've pretty much had it. My hair pulled, pinched, bruises, scratches, it's just expected now. I keep up the perimeters around my house as best I can, mm-hmm. and stuff like that, which really helps to keep that stuff at bay.
Okay.
But there are times where they will literally open up a portal in my house or my yard, and they're past the portal, they're past the boundaries, and I just have to grab out the sage and start saging, and then to close the portal, I will contact my guides and make sure that that's what's going on, and then I will shut down the portal if that's what is going on. But the bad thing about it is being booked out several cases,
right,
is I'm being attacked by all of their demons. Until we get there and defeat those demons, they are attacking me. So once that's done, I've already got another case for the next, whatever.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How do you keep them straight? It's like, what case are you from? Oh, from that one? Okay, wait, hold on.
A lot of times I'll ask my guide. It doesn't even matter at this point. I'm just being attacked. But a lot of times, like the one we did, the last case we did, mm-hmm. which was so horrendous.
Yes.
It was almost virtually every time I was being attacked, it was coming from March 4th. March 4th.
That you even mentioned, you said that even what happened in that prior interview that we tried to do, that was a part of that case that you just finished up.
Yep.
And that was, like I said, again, and I understand confidentiality. And by the way, wasn't it interesting what part of the time at the beginning was saying, are you going to put this on the internet? You remember?
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is the man himself gave us permission to put it on the internet because he wanted people to know this really happens.
Okay.
Now, I'm still not putting it on the internet.
No, and I understand, but I was like...
No, but that was in a prior transmission when I first talked to the wife.
Okay.
She had been taping their conversations.
Okay.
So that when she got to somebody that could actually help them, she could give them so that they could get an idea of what she was dealing with.
Okay.
And one of the things she asked him was, can I tape you? And he laughed and said, no. And he said, well, you can, but the consequences for him are going to be really bad.
Wow.
And sure enough, I mean, I'm taping him, and of course he's acting out and cutting him, and
But she was having, and so in other words, she was having conversations with his demon.
6 months prior to getting in
Bef-
touch with us.
okay.
Yeah.
And did she understand? Did she understand? At what point did she get that? Because I don't think people really can think that this is from the get go what they're dealing with. At what point did she start thinking, okay, what's going on here is a demonic possession?
6 months prior, when she started doing these, they had moved into this new house,
Okay.
and the house was actually sitting on cursed land,
Oh.
and they didn't know that at the time. But ever since they moved into that house, things got just over the top.
Okay.
And he started speaking in different languages.
Mm-hmm.
He would, his voice was totally, completely different. Almost had like a synthesizer effect to it.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I call, and I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about when I say this, but it's almost like a 3D aspect. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not like my voice is one tone, one.
Right.
It's like you can literally pick out. It almost sounds like three different voices at one time, saying
Okay.
the exact same thing. It's just really a weird phenomena, but it was doing that. She literally gave me footage of him sound asleep, and the demons were talking through him while he was sound asleep snoring. And I mean, it literally has the eyes closed in that, and you hear this almost synthesized voice saying, "I can see you, daughter of Christ,"
Really?
which is what he was calling his wife, because she has a very strong faith in Christ. And the demon, I mean, the eyes are closed. He is literally snoring, yet you've got voices talking out of him. It was just insane,
I'm sorry.
like,
I'd be like, uh, I'm moving back with mom for a while.
I asked her, I said, "How did you do this for 11 months? How?"
Uh-huh.
And she said, "I don't sleep." She said, "I sleep with one eye open."
Uh-huh.
And you would literally have to. I mean, I honestly, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
And
I would.
I'm not gonna say because I'm not gonna go into
Yeah.
the but work that I used to do before. I had something similar where I had but this was a mother and a daughter scenario, and the mom, I was talking to her about what was happening, and she had been prescribed something to sleep, but she told me I'm not sleeping, and I said, why aren't you taking this medication? She was having problems with her teenage daughter, very serious problems, by the way. But at that point, she had to disappear all the knives in the house. She had
Yep.
put them away.
Yep.
She says, because one time I woke up and my daughter was standing at the foot of my bed in the dark, staring at me. She goes, but
Yep.
staring at me, not like when your kid comes in like, "Mommy, I want something." No, the kid, she was like, I want to say 15 or 16 years old, just standing at the foot of the bed, staring at me. She says, "I'm afraid to fall asleep. I'm afraid to take this medication to
Yep.
fall asleep
Yep.
because the consequence. I'm afraid of what would happen if I ever did go into a drug-induced sleep."
Right.
And this lady was a wreck, and it was just because she wasn't getting any sleep. So when you're telling me this poor woman is not sleeping because, of course, she's got her husband snoring slash talking in different voices, she must have been a complete disaster, because just the
Yep.
fact that you're not getting any sleep
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely. And afraid for your life.
it everything. I mean, if you can't sleep, especially in a lot of consecutive nights like that,
Yep.
everything falls apart.
Absolutely. I know the morning before we got there, she said when she walked into the house that
Hmm.
all the knives in the kitchen were on the floor in a circle. And she just picked them back up and put them in the knife block on the counter.
See that? See,
Now, if you weren't if you didn't have PTSD from something like this, because I don't know how you could not. I mean, my first thought would have been, why wouldn't you pick up those knives and throw them out of the house? you
To
know,
me, that's like, okay,
you're not thinking because you're not sleeping, and
right,
you're not,
yeah, your better
you know,
judgment is
yeah,
gone.
it impairs it. It really does.
But you know what? And it's like, and we discussed this earlier before we started taping the show, that sometimes um, people do things that you're like, okay, this goes beyond, uh, like, where's your better judgment? It's like totally disappears um,
Yes.
in scenarios like this. And I
You
mean,
just get into like some kind of a coping mechanism thing. It's
hmm,
like I just have to do just enough to cope.
right.
You
And
know,
believe it or not,
it's
that has a lot to do with what you were describing when somebody is going a little or no sleep.
yes,
Like, they're just like, I can't handle it because right now my brain is so foggy and so, you know, that I'm just barely going through the motions of doing what I need to do.
yeah,
And so I'm not, stuff that I would normally just address, I'm not even going to forget. Like you said, she just picked them up and put them back.
yeah.
And,
It's just like if everything looks normal, maybe things will be normal.
mm-hmm,
And it's,
yes.
and yeah, I just thank God that it turned out as well as it did, because it certainly could have been a lot worse.
But, and I told you before, I unfortunately, I don't think you're going to hear, unless, I don't think that the end result of, not because of your lack of
No,
what you did,
yeah,
but unfortunately, I don't think that scenario is going to work out in a positive, and unless she does
I don't
something really
either.
drastic, and we
Yeah,
discussed
I
it, that
don't
might
either.
not happen. But, always, there's always, you always have to hope for the best in situations
Right.
like this.
We've
So,
done what we can to help them,
yeah,
and
at
now it's
some
up to
point, then
them.
you got to stand back and let whatever's going to happen, good or bad or in between.
Yeah.
So your next case, which is when is that scheduled for, next week or?
April 1st.
Okay, so you still got a little bit of time.
We were supposed to do it this weekend, but two of our crew came down with the flu. So
I'm going to ask you because of that team that was in that last investigation, are they still on board with you?
yes,
Really? Okay.
yes, yes. Most of them are. Let's put it that way. Now, the ones that we just brought in for muscle, they don't live. They don't even live in the state.
Okay.
So they just came in special to help us to hold him down.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
So yeah. So they no, I probably won't see them again.
Okay,
God
okay.
bless them. I can't blame them.
No, because like I said, there was one of them that you could tell he was helping out, but he was like eyeing, like, okay, where are the nearest exits in case I need to, like, like, you
I
could.
can't blame him for that. I really can't. But in that situation, it's like I told him, you cannot run out. I don't care if you crawl up the back of my shirt. That's fine, but you can't run out because I will be dead. That that gives them way too much power, way too much power. So it could have ended very badly had somebody run out.
Oh yeah, and you could tell some of their faces. I mean, but you have to give them credit for that. That their faces
Absolutely.
were, but they stuck it out. They stayed there. They didn't. They
Yeah.
didn't. And there was the girl, which I think she had a black pants with a white shirt on, and she was like, at the beginning she was a little bit timid, but then she got right into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was she was really
We,
like, she didn't back down either.
yeah.
So Rita, when the and I know you explained it to me before, when somebody contacts you, let's say via the website, then you contact them back and you kind of like
Yeah.
try to feel out based on what they tell you.
Yes.
If
What I do is I basically I will ask my guides
okay,
first what's really going on there, and then I will call that individual, and they will tell me what's going on from their perspective, and then I will tell them what my guides have told me.
okay,
And usually it's like, how did you know that?
all
How
right,
did you know that? Or I hadn't even thought of that, or I forgot about that, or
okay,
because it is very specific information that I'm given. And we're able to help people that way.
that is fantastic. And again, I'm going to include your website address
I
on the
appreciate
credits
that.
of the show for anybody that wants to reach out, because like I said, I know that there's a lot of people out there, this, despite all this thing, sometimes they've been dealing with the effects of this for years.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, and you mentioned something really important that I want to bring you back to talk about that, which is problems with land or generational curses and bloodline, things along those lines. Like you just
Yep.
mentioned, this couple, they were already having problems with, well, when it like went to the next level when they moved to this specific location.
Yes.
Okay. And a lot of people don't think that exists, and I think it does.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And I mean, when I mentioned it to them, she said she wasn't surprised a bit. She said, ever since we've moved here, she said, we've both lost our jobs. Our car's been repossessed. Just everything has fallen by the wayside, everything.
Exactly.
And some of that sure is due to the fact that the demonic situation that's already going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've also got the curse.
Okay.
I mean, it is actually a lot worse than it probably would have been just with the demons.
Right. Yes. It adds an extra layer.
Yes. Yep.
And you know what, Rita, because I don't want to, if I would have you on for 6 hours, I can't do that to you, but I want to bring you on because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to know whether they're going to move to a new place or they've already there, and then they start feeling things, what they can do as far as, either beforehand or things that they could recognize, like that something is going on, and what your advice to them would be as far as, do they do their own cleansing? Do they call somebody in to help them to do a cleansing of the land? I guess I imagine also it depends on how severe it is. But
right.
And I tell people, I said, sometimes even when you move into a new house, everybody cleans it up and maybe gives it a fresh coat of paint. But I'm thinking, you should do something, because even if it wasn't truly bad, if there was any type of dysfunction going on in that family and there was arguments and God knows what.
Exactly. That negative energy lingers.
That negative energy is still there. It doesn't have to necessarily be like the paranormal, like a deceased anything or a ghost. All you have to be is inside these four walls where people were maybe like saying horrible things to each other, or
you get layers upon layers upon layers, and it has to do with the history of the land all the way back to the beginning. And there's some where I know when I walked on my brother's land for the first time, I could feel the layers of the Revolutionary War. I could feel the layers of everything that happened after that. The Indian uprisings and the Civil War and everything else. And all of that stuff had never been cleansed off the land. And so while I was there, I cleansed his land. And he said, it's such a sanctuary for animals now. He said, there's animals in my yard all the time.
Okay.
So, yeah, it feels good.
He didn't have that before. In
other
words, he noticed the change.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself is such an interesting topic, because a lot of people, they go, head first into buying land and then getting a house built, their dream homes. And then you've heard of these people that they have a brand new house built, and then all this stuff starts happening. And then when they do investigate a little bit more on the background of the land, they find out all these things happened, or there was even a prior house there. And but then it's too late. They've got their big house already built there.
Or there was a, natural disaster that happened, and a lot of people were there's so many things of history that get lost. And unless you actually go and look in archives and things like that, you don't know, because, people way back when, it was a big deal if you picked up and you moved 50 miles away, it was a big deal.
Right.
Now people move from New York to California all the time. It's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. But do you know the history of it? No, that's not something people really look at. It's like, well, it's my land now. Well, yeah, but what happened on it prior?
I mean, I know that, I think it came out in the 90s. What was it? It was, I want to say Black something. Oh God, I can't remember. And it was, they even did, I don't want to say they did a movie or they did a show, but it was based on a reality where it's the same exact thing. It was open land and people were purchasing it to build houses. And then one of the couple that they had, when they started experiencing it, they found out that that whole land had been a cemetery for
Uh,
black people. Like, what's the name of it? God, it escapes me now. But they only found out about after they started experiencing things. Then they started talking to some of their neighbors who started having the
absolutely.
same problems.
Yep.
And then when they started doing some investigation, they found out that whole area, like a big subdivision where people were getting custom made homes built, was built on top of, by the way, and they hadn't moved the bodies either. That was a thing.
Of course not.
It's old burial ground for black people. And I want to say, I can't remember. I don't think there were slaves. It was like post-slavery, but still, it was a way back. And of course, by the time they decided to take over the land, nobody said, forget it. They don't know about it. We'll just build right on it.
Exactly.
And and I guess my point is that sometimes you do research and right off the bat you might not find anything on it.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you start, meeting people in this new town and they know the history of the
Yeah.
town. They know the history of things that have happened. And now
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's like, well, why didn't I know this before I purchased
Yeah.
this land?
Yeah. Because you didn't
And
talk to the right people or nobody. There's
right.
nothing in there. Because of course, especially if they did something as in clearing the land and not removing, removing headstones and not
Yeah.
the graves. Like, who's gonna publish that? They're gonna be like, hush, hush, like, don't talk about that.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's don't ask, don't tell.
Exactly. And I believe it or not, I've hear that happen a lot more frequently than people imagine,
Yes.
or because they move into a new home
Yep.
that they don't have anything to worry about. But anyway, I'm gonna do a separate show. I'll be contacting you for that. But
Okay.
anyway,
All right.
Rita, thank you so much. This was great. It was wonderful. I've tested it, retested it.
Not a
People go,
problem.
but
Not a
people,
problem.
you know what? I know a lot of people don't. You have no idea. Like, I was flabbergasted when I did that last interview with you and there was no audio. It was like, what? I said, you remember that we had been talking and the audio had gone down. When we
And
were
remember I
talking, all of a
held up
sudden it
that
went
sign that
down.
said demons?
And then I said, hold on. And I reset everything again. And then we did this whole huge interview and it was gone. It was like, no. I was like,
Yeah.
can't be.
And I'm
And
like, I'm not surprised at all.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm telling you, because the first time when we were talking that it went down, I said, well, stuff happens. It's electronics. It happens. It happens. But that second part, I was like, oh, okay. Somebody does not want her to get the word out. Somebody does not want her to talk about what she's doing, what her case is involved, how she triumphs, you know,
Yep.
in these scenarios. So,
Yep.
okay, let's screw with the audio.
Absolutely. And it's so weird because at these cases, that's exactly what they do. They mess with our cameras all the time and stuff like that. And it's like,
And you know what? And I have to say that is part of, when you see a lot of these paranormal shows that people talk about it, I have to say that is accurate. Not all the time,
yes.
but it
Yeah.
is accurate.
Yes. It
Or
is.
your
Very.
electronics or your batteries, all of a sudden they go sideways and there
Yep.
is nothing there that, it's like, okay, how did I go from a fully charged
We
battery
did
to
one
nothing?
case one time, well before the demon stuff.
Okay.
And this is very, very, very short story.
Oh,
But they were actually, it was down in Florida. We were doing Wicked Davies, which was one of the oldest bars in operation, and it was on Amelia Island.
okay.
And we went down there, and after we had a lot of activity happen, and one of the news stations came out to interview us at Wicked Davies afterwards to find out what it was that we found there.
Okay.
And while they were doing the interview, you know, those big battery pack things, that those big cameras that they wear on their,
Yes.
that's what they had. And it had like a big old battery, was about this big,
Yeah.
It literally, while they were doing it, it stopped the camera. And when they went to change the battery out, the battery had literally sucked in itself. It was crumpled in. It had, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
And what did they say about this? It's like, see?
The guy said he was going back out to the van to get another battery, and he left, and he never came back.
Oh, shit.
He did. I swear. They had to send out a different crew.
I love it. Hold that thought. I'll be right back. Never.
I couldn't even make that up.
No. And you know what? And this guy probably, he did that because he had never, ever had that experience before. Ever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Did not believe in ghosts and all that kind of stuff. And then that happens. Yeah. And I mean, I'd never seen that either. I'd never seen a battery actually crumple up onto itself. I'd never seen that.
And the timing was impeccable.
It was.
Okay, that's it. I went from non-believer to believer in about 3 seconds. And you know what? Now as a believer, I'm going to believe myself out of here.
And I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah, and I lay out towards the nearest bar that's not here. And this is, and a lot of people do that. And then it's really funny because maybe not, but I bet you that guy later on would even still continue denying, oh, ghosts are real, but he'll never share that experience.
No, probably
because
not.
It's as long as I keep saying that it's not real, that it doesn't exist, it won't be real.
That's right. It'll go away.
It'll go away. I'll just blank that whole thing out. of and that's the one thing that, and but again, I guess I was under, because I've done enough investigations in my time that usually you have to be there at that spot. You know what I'm saying? You have to be there. Versus like here it was like, okay, but it comes, I guess, with a territory. And Rita, I mean, my hat's off to you, because let me tell you that besides the case, but just the experience that you've had personally at your house, and like you said, even though you take all these measures to do different things or to decompress or to like think of other things, in the back of your mind, you've got to think this is
pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They've got my number, and even they might know about cases or confrontations that I'm going to have long before I know it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, you even told me that even some of the original clergy that you worked with, some of them had health problems, or that it got to the point where they couldn't.
Yep. Yeah.
And I guess the point I want to say is, yes, I know what you said, you organize it and you do the physical effort to go out to wherever these people are at. But there's a psychological toll that it's got to take on you, because
it does. It does. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of your time. It takes. People have no idea how much thought process goes into this thing about how to defeat it. What is it?
It's more than just a physical thing.
It's way more than just a physical thing. Yeah.
And I tell you, what was it? On another interview I had, I told him, real quick, I was researching. As a matter of fact, it was when I did that patchwork show about after I got slammed by whatever that was. And back in 1981, when they had a case that, as a matter of fact, the Warrens were in on it, which was out of Connecticut, which it was that there was a murder, and the guy that he was getting tried, they tried to use the plea of demonic possession. But anyway, an A haunting did a portion of it.
Yep.
But they were just, because I was reading up on the background of it, and at some point there was a possession of an 11-year-old, and when the family realized at some point what was going on, they were Catholic, and they went ahead and contacted their parish priest.
Sure.
And when he found out what was happening, and I think he realized this is really what is happening, is not. He told him, he says, I would like to help you, but I can't, because 10 years ago I was involved in another exorcism, and that took such a toll on me psychologically
Yes.
that I cannot do this again.
Yeah.
And he was the one, I mean, he did a house blessing, but as far as the exorcism, he was the one that introduced them to the Warrens.
Yes.
The point being that this was a man who was a priest. He understood it. He had the tools, but he had done an exorcism 10 years ago, and he was still like in recovery mode from that,
Yeah.
to the point
Yeah.
that he was like, I want to help you, but I can't.
Yeah.
And
And
that's,
when you get to that point where you know that you are so spent,
mm-hmm,
it's very dangerous for you to go out there then and try it. Because if you
yes,
are weak at all,
exactly.
they will exploit it, and they will hurt you. Yeah.
And that, and well, it really didn't go into that much detail, but to
Yeah.
me, it was like very telling that he had basically admitted it. It was like, I know that I cannot do this.
Yeah.
Um, and this was an event that was 10 years. This was not like a year. This was 10 years before. And I mean, I don't know. He doesn't detail what the case was or what occurred in that exorcism, but it was enough that and once he got them introduced to the Warrens, and then later on the Warrens helped them get in touch with church members and
Yeah.
do some type of exorcism, and then it took on a life of its own because they did a movie and a book and the whole
Yeah.
9 yards on it.
Yeah.
But again, the point being is that people don't realize that there is, besides the physical, there's a mental toll that comes with this.
An emotional toll and a
Yes.
mental toll, and yes, it does. It
So,
does, because we genuinely care about these people.
right, yeah.
We really do, and we treat them like we would our own family members. And it's difficult. It's difficult to see people in the kind of situation that they're in, and what this thing makes them do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's cut themselves, or putting cigarettes out on themselves,
Yes.
or
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I know that
it's
part.
crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I've seen where they literally almost turn into a snake
Oh,
themselves, the
wow.
person. And I've seen where they can take a hand and literally bend it all the way backwards and break it,
Oh,
and
God.
never flinch, never have anything.
That if you know that if that person was that there was no way they're going to be able to do that.
No way.
Just no way to do that.
No.
And see, some of, like I said, again, you know, there's the movie stuff, but when you see like the video clips, like the one you said, that you look at this and you're like, okay, if this person's faking it, that's one hell of a fake. Okay, like
Absolutely.
they're not faking it, in other words.
No. Mm-mm. No
And
way.
those are the ones that are the real eye openers
Yeah.
to that makes you think, okay, whether you want to believe it or not, because you just don't want to believe it because this doesn't fit into your view of the world.
Right. Try my world. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, I'm going to tell you, to Colleen. People didn't know that, but she's great. She was like, what? I mean, you look at her, she's real thin, slender, but you could tell she doesn't back down.
Oh, no way. No.
And
No.
by the way, what happened? What was his name? Brother Billy. That was from one of the videos that I saw. What has become of him?
He's working a full-time job now,
Okay.
and he's like putting on a lot of hours.
Okay.
And so he really doesn't have time much to do this anymore.
Okay. And the reason why I ask him is he was the one that I saw in one of the other clips that he was very
Very charismatic.
I had to laugh. I'm sorry. He was great, but there was parts in there
He
that
is
it
awesome.
was like this is excellent. He's another one that's like he's got it. It's like, okay, all right. I see where he's
Yep.
good. But okay, Rita, let me I don't know, over here we're getting close to 1 a.m., so I know it's got to be late for you as well. Thank you again so much, so
Sure.
much for spending this time with me, redoing this interview. Like I said, I'll be
My pleasure.
recontacting you so we can come back and we can discuss that land generational thing
Okay.
that goes
Sounds
on and that
great.
people are totally ignorant of.
Yeah. True.
Okay? So have a good weekend and good luck
You
to you on
too.
your next case, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you again.
Bye bye. Have a good
Bye bye.
weekend.
You too.
I'm so glad I've got her back. Yay. Again, I'm so glad that I was able to do that interview with Rita. Why? Because besides the fact that she's very interesting, the fact that what she does is so interesting, and that's an aspect of the paranormal that, it's great to talk to somebody who does this, what's getting a lot of attention in TV land. This is somebody that's really doing it. Okay. Uh, and I said, I know there's a lot of people that are going, you know what, that's not real. Or the people that are faking it, or it's mental illness, or you know what? I'm sure there's people that maybe contacted her at some point or that are faking it. And to me, it sounds like she's got a pretty good idea of when she finds one of those. And that there's mentally ill, absolutely there is. But that doesn't mean that there is no type of attachment. It's just making things worse. Okay? And again, what she does is not a cure-all, because these people are still going to have the problems they had as far as if they have some type of mental illness, but at least they will probably be more amenable to treatment, to medications, to uh, working with the support system they have around them, whether it's marriage or family of origin or whatever the case might be. But anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is interviewing somebody like Rita who does what she does brings such a human aspect to this type of over-the-top presentation that you see on the TV. Okay, like she said, these are everyday people that find themselves in, for lack of a better word, extraordinary circumstances. Um, and like she said, sometimes people become open channels because of head trauma. And, I myself personally, having worked in this area of attachments, know that that's possible. Also emotional trauma, and that this can happen even when people are children. A lot of times that's exactly when it starts. And that sometimes people, depending on what's going on in their lives, depending on who they're even attracted to, it compounds the problem. But you could tell she has a deep sense of empathy and sympathy for these people, who are sometimes, for lack of a better word, they're strangers. She's only met them over the phone or through an email and maybe a couple of conversations, and she's willing to drive out with her team and see what she could do. And again, this last case, she showed me up. I told her, if I was you, I would have turned around and left. It was a very highly dangerous situation. Taking the demonic out of it, it was a highly, highly dangerous situation. She still went out there and she stayed. And you could tell she's got other things lined up. I think that speaks volume about what Rita does and the passion that she has for her work and the commitment she has to it. So I do hope that you like this video. I hope you subscribe to my channel. I hope if you want to recommend specifically this subject matter, this video to other people, by all means do it. And again, I'm going to include the information on reaching Rita in the credits. And I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it here. She said it. If she can't come and knock on your door. If you feel that you or somebody might need this type of deliverance or intervention, however you want to look at it, you're going to have to take the first step and contact her and then take it from there. Otherwise, there's no way for her to help you or put you in contact with somebody that can help you. Okay? And to be honest, without really knowing the specifics, I'm sure that Rita probably has very high standards on anybody that she would recommend if she couldn't personally go out to see you. So I hope you like it. I love producing this show. I'm so glad that believe it or not, before I got taping, I tested this with Rita a couple of times just to make sure everything was working. That's how careful I am. Extra careful. I'm always careful, but in the case of who I was interviewing, I was being extra careful because I wanted this to come off without a hitch and to bring it to you so that you guys would be able to see this. And I think listen to what it's a super interesting person. Okay. Again, I hope you guys, today is a Friday for me. So I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend. It's St. Patrick's Day here, so well, not anymore. Happy St. Patty's Day. Okay. And of course, as you can tell, I'm not wearing green. What can I say? Sometimes I lose track of time. Have a good weekend. I hope all is well with you. And again, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.